Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want
So
to
we oh okay. Hello. Um so uh hi. So we are participants in Los Angeles Queer Resistance. I'm Edzi.
And I'm Chella.
And yeah, we are reading today yeah, the Zora Neale Hurston's their eyes were on, or their eyes were watching God, chapter 2. And we'll be reading, yeah, 2 pages at a time. So intentionally we decided, or comrades within our collective as organizers, we decided, or to have the black people within our space read, just to, just so that the dynamic isn't awkward within us between reading, and so if people are tuning in, that they're also not taken aback by the language used. What do you have anything?
Yeah, even though it is a black author that wrote it, and just acknowledging the time is different, acknowledging accents might not be. We're not going to fake accents. We're going to do our best and not give way to white supremacy while we're doing this. And I think that's why a lot of folks that were folks of color but not black decided to step back, to give us that voice and to let us portray this, which is pretty much a part of our history, right? So yeah.
Hashtag black girl. So yeah, so I guess we'll jump into it. Janie saw her life like a great tree in leaf, with the things suffered, things enjoyed, things done and undone. Dawn and doom was in the branches. Ah, know exactly what I got tell ya, but it's hard to know where to start at. I never see my ma, papa, and I didn't know if I'm a did. My mama neither. She was gone from round there long before I was big enough to know. My grandma raised me. My grandma and the white folks she worked with. We had a house out in the backyard, and that's where I was born. They was quality white folks up there in West Florida named Washburn. She had 4 grandchildren on the place, and all of us played together. And that's how come I never called my grandma nothing but Nanny, because that's what everybody on the place called her. Nanny used to catch us in our devilment and lick every young gun on the place, and Miss Washburn did the same. I reckon they never hit us a lick of miss, because them 3 boys and 2 girls was pretty aggravating, I expect. I was with him with chillin' so much till I didn't know I wasn't white. Till I was around 6 years old. Wouldn't have found it out then, but a man come along taking pictures without asking anybody. Shelby, that was the oldest boy, he told him to take us. Round a week later, the man brought the picture of Miss Washburn to see and pay him, which she did, then give us all a good licking. So when we looked at the picture and everybody got pointed out there, wasn't nobody left except a real dark little girl with long standing by Eleanor. That's where I was supposed to be. But I couldn't recognize that dark child as me. So I asked, where is me? I don't see me. Everybody laughed, even Mr. Washburn, Miss Nellie, the mama of the chillin', who come back home after her husband dead. She pointed to the dark one and said, "That's you, Alphabet. Don't you don't you own yourself?" They all used to call me Alphabet because so many people had named me after names. I looked at the picture a long time and seen it was my dress and my hair, so I said, I'm colored." Then they all laughed real hard. But before seeing the picture, I thought I was just like the rest. Us lived there having fun till chilling at school got to teasing me about living in the white folks' backyard. There was a naughty head gal named Mariella that Uster get mad every time she look at me. Ms. Washburn Uster dressed me up in all the clothes her grandchildren didn't need no more, which still wasn't bet better than what the rest of the colored children had. And then she has to put her hair ribbon on my head for me to wear. That used to rile Mariella up a lot. So she would pick at me all the time and put some others up to do the same. They'd push me away from the ring, plays, and make out they couldn't play with nobody that lived on premises. Then they tell me not to be taken on over my looks because they ma told them about the hound dogs hunting. My papa all night long about Mr. Washburn and the sheriff putting the bloodhounds on the trail to catch my papa for what he for what he done to my mama.
They didn't tell me how he was seen trying to get in touch with the mama later on so he would marry her. Now they didn't talk that part of it at all. They made it sound real bad as to crumple my feathers. None of them didn't even remember what his name was, but they all knowed me, the bloodhound, part of my heart. Nanny, Nanny didn't love to see me with the head hung down, so she figured it would be more better for me if it had a house. She got the land and everything. Then Miss Washburn helped out a whole heap with things. Phoebe's hungry. Listening helped Janie to tell her story. So she went on thinking back to her young years and explaining to her friend in soft, easy phrases all around the house. The night time put on flesh and blackness. She thought a while and decided that her conscious life had commented at Nanny's gate. On a late afternoon, Nanny had called her outside the house because she had spied Janie letting Johnny Taylor kiss her over the gate post. It was a spring afternoon in West Florida. Janie had spent most of the day under a blossoming pear tree in the backyard. She had been spending every minute that she could steal from her chores under the tree for the last 3 days. It had called her to come and gaze on her mystery. From barren bound stems to glistening leaf buds, from leaf buds to snowy virginity of bloom. It stirred her tremendously. How? Why? It was like a flute song forgotten in another existence and remembered again. What? How? Why? The singing she heard that had nothing to do with her ears. The rose of the world was breathing out smell. It followed her through all her waking moments and caressed her into sleep. It connected herself with other vaguely felt matters that had struck her outside the observation and burned themselves in her flesh. Now they emerged and quested about her consciousness. She was stretched on her back beneath the pear tree, soaking in the alto chant of the visiting bees, the gold of the sun, and the panting breath of the breeze. Then an inaudible voice of it came to her. She saw a dust beast sink into the sanctum of a bloom, the thousand sister Calaxis arc to meet the love embrace and the ecstatic shiver of the tree from root to tiniest branch, creaming in every blossom and frothing with delight. So this was marriage. She had been summoned. Behold a revelation. Then Janie felt a pain remorseless sweet that left her limp and languid. After a while, she got up from where she was and went over the little garden field entire. She was seeking confirmation of a voice and vision, and everywhere she had found and acknowledged answers. A person answer for all three creations except herself. She felt an answer seeking her. But where? When? How? She found herself at the kitchen door and stumbled inside. In the air of the room were flies tumbling and singing, marrying and giving in marriage. When she reached the narrow hallway, she was reminded that her grandmother was home with a sick headache. She was lying across the bed asleep. So Janie tipped out on the front door, tipped out on the front door on the pier, on to be a pear tree, any tree in bloom, with kissing beings singing at the beginning of the world. She was 16. She had glossy leaves and busting buds, and she wanted to struggle with life, but it seemed to elude her. Where were the singing bees for her? Nothing on the place nor in Grandma's house answered her. She searched as much of the world as she could from the top of the front steps, then went on down to the front gate and leaned over to gaze up and down the road, looking, waiting, breathing, short with impatience, wanting for all the world to be made. Through pollinated air, she saw a glorious being coming up the road. In her former blindness, she had known him as shiftiness Johnny Taylor, tall and thin.
Sorry, I'm breaking the not going into southern accent thing. Yeah. It's just in the writing. But I'm actually, I have a lot of I was partly raised in the South, so it's like almost coming back to me, which I've repressed for years.
And my grandma
um that was before the golden dust of pollen had glamoured his rags in her eyes. In the last stages of Nanny's sleep, she dreamed of voices far off, but persistent and gradually coming nearer. Janny's voice, Janny talking in whispery snatches with a male voice she couldn't quite place, that brought her wide awake. She bolted upright and peered out of the window and saw Johnny Taylor lacerating her Janny with a kiss. Janny, the old woman's voice was so lacking in command and reproof, so full of crumbling disillusion that Janny half believed that Nanny had not seen her. So she extended herself outside of her dream and went inside of the house. That was the end of her childhood. Nanny's head and face looked like the standing roots of some old tree that had been torn away from by storm, foundation of ancient power that no longer mattered. The cooling Palma Christi leaves that Janny had bound about her grandma's head with a white rag had wilted down and become part and parcel of the woman. Her eyes didn't bore and pierce. They diffused and melted Janny, the room and the world into one comprehension. Janny, you's a woman. Now so. Nah, nanny, nah. I ain't no real woman yet. The thought was too new and heavy for Jenny. She fought it away. Nanny closed her eyes and nodded a slow, weary affirmation many times before she gave it voice. Yeah, Jenny, you've got your womanhood on you. So I might as well tell you what I've been saying for a spell. I want to see you get married right away. Me married? Nah, nanny, no, no, ma'am. What I know about a husband? What I what I seen just now is plenty for me, honey. And I don't want no trashy nigga, no breath and britches like Johnny Taylor using your body to wipe his foot on. Nanny's words made Jenny's kiss across the gate post seem like a manure pile after rain. Look at me, Jenny. Don't sit there with your head hung down. Look your old grandma. Her voice began snagging on the prongs of her feelings. I don't want to be talking to you like this. Fact is, I don't been on my knees to my maker many the time asking please for him not to make the burden too heavy for me to bear. Nanny, I didn't mean nothing bad. That's what makes me scared. You don't mean no harm. You don't even know where harm is at. I'm old now. I can't I can't be always guiding your feet from harm and danger. I want to see you married right away. Whoa, I'm going to marry offhand like that? I don't know nobody. The Lord will provide. And he know I done bore the burden in the heat of the day. Somebody done spoke to me about you long time ago. I ain't said nothing because that wasn't the way I placed you. I wanted you to school out and pick from a higher bush, a sweeter berry, but that ain't your idea. Let's see. Nanny, who that who that been asking you for me? Brother Logan Killix. He's a good man too. No, no, Nanny. I no ma'am. Is that what he's been hanging around here for? He's he looked like some old skullhead in the graveyard. The older woman sat bolt right upright and put her feet to the floor and thrust back the leaves from her face. So you don't want to marry off decent like, do you? You just want to hug and kiss and feel around with your first one man and then another, huh? You want to you want to make me suck the same tomorrow? Yo mama did, eh? My old head ain't gray enough. My back ain't bowed enough suit you.
The vision of Logan Killix was desecrating the pear tree, but Janie didn't know how to tell Nanny that. She was merely hunched over and pouted at the floor. Janie, yes, ma'am? You answer me when I speak. Don't you say they're pouting with me after all I done for you. She slapped the girl's face violently and forced her head back so that her eyes met in a struggle. With her head uplifted for the second blow, she set the huge tear that welled up from Jenny's heart and stood in each eye. She saw the terrible agony, and then lips tightened down to, to hold back the cry that desisted. Instead, she brushed back her heavy hair from Jenny's face and stood there, suffering and loving and weeping internally for both of them. Come to your grandma, honey. Sit in, your, sit in her lap like, like, yo, like you used to. Yo, your nanny wouldn't harm you. Hair on your head. So don't want nobody else to do it neither. And if she can do it, help it, honey, the white man is the ruler of everything as far as I've been able to find out. Maybe it's someplace. We're off in the ocean where the black man is in power. But we don't know nothing but what we see. So the white man throw down the load and tell the nigger man to pick it up. And he pick it up because he have to. But he don't know he don't told it. He handed to the woman folks. The nigger woman is the mule. And the world is fur, as you can see. I've been praying for it to be different with you. Low, low, low. For a long time, she sat rocking with the little girl, held tightly to her second breast. Jeannie's long legs dangled over one arm and of the chair, and the long braids of her hair swung low of the other side. Nanny half sung, half sobbed, a running chant prayer over the head of the weeping girl. Lord have mercy. It was a long time on the way to, I reckon it had to come. Oh, Jesus, do Jesus. Uh, done the best I could. Finally, they grow calm. Jenny, how long you in lowing Johnny Taylor to kiss you? Only this one time, Nanny. I don't know him at all. What what made me do this? I I don't know. Thank you, Master Jesus. I ain't gonna do nothing no more. Nanny, please don't make me marry Mr. Killix. Think no good Killix. I want you to have have baby. It's protection. I ain't getting old, honey. I'm all done. One morning soon, now the angel would be sold and going to stop me be here. The day and the hour is hid from me, but it won't be long. Ask the Lord when you were an infant in my arms to let me stay here till you got grown. He done spared me to see this day. My daily prayer now is to let these golden moments roll on for a few days longer. Oh, see, you saved me in life. Let me wait, Nanny, please. Just a little bit more. Don't think I don't feel with you, Janie, because I do. I couldn't love you no more if I felt you birth pains and myself. For other matter, I loved you a whole lot heap more. I do your mama, the one that did in birth. But you got to take in consideration you ain't you ain't no everyday chili like most of them. You ain't got no papa. You must just say you ain't got no mama. For the good she do ya. You ain't got nobody but me. In my head is an old tilted towards the grave. Neither can you stand alone by yourself. The thought of you being kicked around from pillar to post is hurting thing. Every tear of you drop squeezes a cup of blood out of my heart. I got to try and do better for you. My head is cold. A sobbing sigh burst of Janie. The old woman answered her with a little soothing pat of the head.
You know, honey, us colored folks is branches without roots, and that makes things come round in queer ways. You in particular. I was born back due in slavery, so wasn't for me to fulfill my dreams or what a woman ought to be and to do. That's one for the holdbacks of slavery. but nothing can stop you from wishing. You can't beat nobody down. So till you can rob him of they will, I didn't I didn't want to be used for a work ox and a broad soul, and I didn't want my daughter used that way neither. It sure wasn't my will for things to happen like they did. I haven't hated the way you was born, but all the same, I said thank God I got another chance. I wanted to preach a great sermon about colored women sitting on high, but they wasn't no pulpit for me. Freedom found me with a baby daughter in my arms. So I said I'd take a broom and a cook pot and throw up a highway through the wilderness for her. She would expound what I felt, but somehow she got lost off of the highway. And next thing I know, here you was in the world. So whilst I was tending you off nights, I said I'd saved a text for you. I've been waiting a long time, Janie, but nothing. I've been through ain't too much if you just take a stand on high ground like I dreamed. Old Nanny sat there rocking Janie like an infant and thinking back and back. Mind pictures brought feelings, and feelings dragged out dramas from the hollows of her heart. That morning on the big plantation close to Savannah, a rider come in gallop telling about Sherman taking Atlanta. Mars, Robert's son, had done been killed at Chickamauga. So he grabbed his gun and straddled his best horse and went off with the rest of the gray-headed men and young boys to drive the Yankees back into Tennessee. They was all cheering and crying and shouting for the men that was riding off. I couldn't see nothing because your mama wasn't but a week old, and I was flat on my back. But pretty soon, he let on he forgot something and run into my cabin and made me let down my hair for the last time. He sort of wrapped his hand in it, pulled me, pulled my big toe like he always done, and was gone after the rest like lightning. I heard him give one last whoop for him. Then the big house and the quarters got sober and silent. It was it was the cool of the evening when Mrs. coming walking in my door. She threw door down, the door wide open, and stood there looking at me out of her eyes and her face. Looked like she been living through 100 years in January without one day of spring. She could she come stood over me in the bed. Nanny, I come to see that baby of yourn. I tried not to feel the breeze of her face, but it got so cold in there that I was freezing to death under the kivers. So I couldn't move right away like I aimed to, but I knowed I had to make haste and do it. You better give that kiver off that youngin' and that quick, she clashed at me. Look like you don't know who is Mrs. on this plantation, madam, but I aims to show you. By that time, I had done managed to uncover my baby enough for her to see the head and face. Nigga, what's your baby doing with gray eyes and yellow hair? She begging to slap my jaws ever which way. I never felt the fuss once cause I was too busy getting the kiver back on my child. But them last lick burnt me like a fire. I had too many feelings to tell which one to follow, so I didn't cry and I didn't do nothing else. But then she kept on asking me, how come my baby don't look white? Or how come my baby look white? She asked me that maybe 25 or 30 times. Like she got a saying that and couldn't help herself. So I told her I don't know nothing, but what I'm told to do, cause I ain't nothing but a nigga and a slave. Instead of pacifying her like I thought, looked like she got madder, but I reckon she was tired and wore out because she didn't hit me no more.
She went to the foot of the bed and wiped her heads off my shirt and went and dirty my hands on you. But the first in the morning, the overseer will take you in the whipling, post tie you down on your knees, and cut your hot hit, cut the hide off of y'all back. 100 lashes with a ride on your bare back. All of y'all whipped till the blood run down your heels. I mean, to count the licks off myself, and if it kills you, I'll stand the loss. Anyhow, as soon as that breath is my ode, I'm going to sell it off this place. She flounced off the, she flounced on off and let her winter time with me. I know my body wasn't healed, and I considered that. In the black dark, I wrapped my body the best I knowed how, and made it to swamp by the river. I knowed the place. She's filled of occasions and the other bitten snakes. But I was more scared and what was behind me. And I heard on the day and night a sucker led the baby every time and start to cry for fear somebody might hear her and get found. I ain't saying a friend or two wouldn't feel my care, and then the good Lord see to it I wasn't taken. I don't see how. How come my milk didn't kill my chip? Well, me so scared and worried all the time. The noise and the owl scared me. The limbs of the cypress trees took to crawling and moving around after dark, and two, three times, and I heard painters prowling around, but never ever hurt me, 'cause the Lord knew how it was. Then one night, I heard a big guns booming like thunder. It kept me up all night long. And the next morning, I could see a big dip at a distance and a great stirring around. So I wrapped Leafy up in moss and fixed her in a good tree, picked my way on down to the landing. The men was all in blue, and all her people's Shermans was coming to meet in the boots of Savannah. And all of us slaves were free. So I run, got my baby, and got a quotation with the people and found a place I could stay. But it was a long time after that before the big surrender in Richmond. Then the big bell rang in Atlanta, and all the men in gray uniforms had to go to Monterey and bury their swords in the ground to show they was never gonna fight about slavery no more. So then we knew we was free. I wouldn't marry nobody though. I could have a heap of times. Could have didn't want nobody mistreat my baby. So I got with some good white people, come down here in West Florida to work and make the sunshine on both sides of the sweet for that leafy. My madam helped me with just like she had been doing with you. I put her in school when it got so it was school to put her in. I was expecting to take school to make a teacher out of her. But one day, she didn't come home at the usual time. And I waited and waited, but she never came home at all that night. I took a lantern and went around asking everybody. Nobody ain't seen her. The next morning, she came crawling in on her hands and knees, a sight to see. That school teacher had done hid her in the woods all night long, and he had done raped my baby and ran off just before day. She was only 17, and something like that had to happen. Lord of mercy. Look, looking it all over again. It was a long time before she was well, and by that time, we know you was on the way. And after you was born, she took the drinking liquor and staying out nights. Couldn't get her to stay here. Couldn't get her to stay here and nowhere else. Lord knows where she is right now. She ain't dead, cause I'd know it by my feelings. But sometimes I wish she was at rest. And Janie, maybe it wasn't much, but I'd done the best I could with by you. I raked, I raked and scraped and brought this little piece ahead of so you wouldn't have to stay in the white folks truck and truck your happy foe, other children at school. That was all night. All right when you was a little, but when you got big enough to understand things, I wanted you to look upon yourself and don't want your feathers always crumpled by throwing up things in your face. And I can't die easy thinking maybe them men folks, white or black, is making a spit cup out of you. Have some sympathy for me. Put me down easy, Janie. I'm a cracked plate. Oh, that was heavy.
Yeah, that was heavy. Thank you.
Thank you so much for reading, guys. Thank you. All right. Um, everyone can. Wait, let's see what time is it? Oh, it's 7:30. Um, we can take a little bit of a break and kind of like walk around the gallery and things because look at Skyra's pictures. At 8 o'clock, Karini is going to be on, and then Alyssa is going to be on. Alicia, sorry. Yeah, sorry. And yes, and someone else was going to be on, but yes, yes. All right. That's like the hard. That's like one of the hardest chapters. I mean, not. I mean, emotionally hard. That's an emotionally hard chapter. Yeah. If anybody's watching, we'll be back in like 5 minutes. Do you want me to take a picture of her? No, I'll take a picture. Would you like for me to take a picture with my camera and then send it to you? Oh, I would love that. See, for that. All right.
This is what happens as if it happens all the time.
Yeah. I will take a picture of all your life. Yeah? All right, here we go. Ready? Oh, I see it. One. I'm going to show you, so if you should not approve it, I can take it. Yeah? All right, I will send it to you. I can text. What is your number so I can text it to you? Okay. There you go. Okay, you're gonna be up. Oh, yes. You're on chapter 3. Yes. What chapter? You're chapter 3. Chapter 3. After that hard chapter. You know what I was thinking? I'm telling you something. When I read this book, when I was younger, I think I underestimated how long it was. I mean, I overestimated it. Oh, really? And I thought it'd be harder. It was really, I mean, it's challenging. It's emotional, but it's like
People have, you know.
Chapter 3 is like 3 pages.
Oh, you can read chapter 4 if you want to. It depends. If you feel if you have a feeling, you can.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see
Okay.
where I'm at.
Okay. Okay, and just get right here.
Oh, God.
And make
I have
sure.
to be on camera.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we're doing it
Damn
live.
it.
And make sure.
Can I sit far, far away so they don't see
Yeah.
me?
Yeah. Make sure.
Oh, sorry,
that,
Tika.
okay. Make sure that you are on. That you just speak in the mic.
Yeah.
I know other people are talking, but it's a dynamic mic, so it'll just hear you.
That's fine.
Okay.
Can I? Okay.
Okay.
Should I begin? La 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 la. I'm gonna just.
Okay. I'll be right here.
Yeah. No, Tika, come sit next to. What? No.
You have, I mean, if you want to, they can. But you don't have to. You don't have to.
Would you like to join me on the couch? I mean, could you? Okay. I'm gonna just start reading. There are years that ask questions and years that answer. Janie had had no chance to know things, so she had to ask. Did marriage end the cosmic loneliness of the unmated? Did marriage compel love like the sun the day? In the few days to live before she went to Logan Killick's and his often mentioned 60 acres, Janie asked inside of herself and out. She was back and forth to the pear tree, continuously wondering and thinking. Finally, out of Nanny's talk and her own conjectures, she made a sort of comfort for herself. Yes, she would love Logan after they were married. She could see no way for it to come about, but Nanny and the old folks had said it, so it must be so. Husbands and wives always loved each other, and that was what marriage meant. It was just so. Janie felt glad of the thought, for then it wouldn't seem so destructive and moldy. She wouldn't be lonely anymore. Janie and Logan got married in Nanny's parlor of a Saturday evening with 3 cakes and big platters of fried rabbit and chicken. Everything to eat in abundance. Nanny and Mrs. Washburn had seen to that. But nobody put anything on the seat of Logan's wagon to make it ride glorious on the way to his house. It was a lonesome place like a stump in the middle of the woods where nobody had ever been. The house was absent of flavor, too. But anyhow, Janie went on inside to wait for love to begin. The new moon had been up and down 3 times before she got worried in mind. Then she went to see Nanny in Mrs. Washburn's kitchen on the day for beaten biscuits. Nanny beamed all out with gladness and made her come to the breadboard so she could kiss her. Lot of missy, honey. I sure is glad to see my child. Go on inside and let Miss Washburn know you's here. How's that husband of yours? Janie didn't go in where Mrs. Washburn was. She didn't say anything to match up with Nanny's gladness either. She just fell on a chair with her hips and sat there. Between the biscuits and her beaming pride, Nanny didn't notice for a minute. But after a while, she found the conversation getting lonesome, so she looked up at Janie. What's the matter, sugar? You ain't none too spry this morning? Oh, not much. I reckon. I come to get a little information from you. The old woman looked amazed, then gave a big clatter of laughter. Don't tell me you done got knocked up already. This Saturday, it's 2 months and 2 weeks. Nah, I don't think so anyhow. Janie blushed a little. You ain't got nothing to be ashamed of, honey. You's a married woman. You got your lawful husband, same as Miss Washburn or anybody else. I'm all right that way. I know ain't nothing there. You and Logan been fussing? Lord, I know that grass cut. Liver lip ain't done took and beat my baby already. I'll take a stick and salivate him. No, he ain't even talked about hitting me. He says he never meant to lay the weight on his hand on me in malice. He chops all the wood he think I wants, and then he totes it inside the kitchen for me. Keeps both water buckets full. Don't expect all that to keep him. He ain't kissing your mouth when he carrying on over you like that. He's kissing your foot, and that ain't That ain't a man to kiss foot long. Mouth kissing is on equal, and that's natural. But when they got to bow down to love, they soon straighten up. Yes'm. Well, if you do all that, would you come in here with a face long as my arm? 'Cause you told me I must gonna love him, and I don't. Maybe if somebody was to tell me how, I could do it. You come here with your mouthful of foolishness on a busy day. Here you go, up, prop that lean on all your bones days and big protection. And everybody got to tiptoe that hut, and you call him Miss Killix. And you come and worrying about here, love? But Nanny, I wants to want him sometimes. I don't want him to do all the wanting. If you don't want him, you show oughta. Here you is, with the onlyest organ in town, amongst colored folks, in your parlor. Got a house bought and paid for, and 60 acres of land right on the big road. And Lord have mercy, that's the very prong all us black women gets hung on. This love. That's just what's got us a pulling and a hauling and sweating and doing from can't see in the morning to can't see at night. That's how come the old folks say that been a fool don't kill nobody. It just makes you sweat. I bet you want some dressed up dude that got to look at the sole of his shoe every time he crossed the street to see whether he got enough leather there to make cross. You can buy and sell such them with what you got. In fact, you can buy them and give them away. I ain't studying about none of them. At the same time, I ain't taking that old land to heart neither. I could throw 10 acres of it over the fence every day and never look back to see where it fell. I feel the same way about Mr. Killix, too. Some folks never was meant to be loved, and he's one of them. How come? 'Cause I hates the way his head is so long one way and so flat on the side, and that pone of fat back on his back. He never made his own head. You talk so silly. I don't care who made it. I don't like the job. His belly is too big, too. Now, and his toenails look like mule foots. And ain't nothing in the way of him washing his feet every morning before he comes to bed. Ain't nothing to hinder him, 'cause I place the water for him. I'd rather be shot with tacks than to turn over in bed and stir up the air whilst he's in there. He don't even never mention nothing pretty. She began to cry. I wants things sweet with my marriage, like when you sit under a pear tree and think. Ah, that ain't no use in you crying, Janie. Grandma done been long few roads herself. But folks is meant to cry about something or another. Better leave things the way they is. You's young yet. No telling what mouth happen before you die. Wait a while, baby. Your mind will change. Nanny sent Janie along with a stern mien, but she dwindled all the rest of the day as she worked. And when she gained the privacy of her own little shack, she stayed on her knees so long she forgot she was there herself. There's a basin in the mind where words float around on thought and thought on sound and sight. Then there's a depth of thought untouched by words, and deeper still, a gulf of formless feelings untouched by thought. Nanny entered this infinity of conscious pain again on her old knees. Towards morning, she muttered, "Lord, you know my heart. I done the best I could. Due rest is left to you." She scuffled up from her knees and fell heavily across the bed. A month later, she was dead. So Janie waited a bloom time, and a green time, and an orange time. But when the pollen again gilded the sun and sifted down on the world, she began to stand around the gate and expect things. What things? She didn't know exactly. Her breath was gusty and short. She knew things that nobody had ever told her.
For instance, the words of the trees and the wind. She often spoke to falling seeds and said, I hope you fall on soft ground, because she had heard seeds saying that to each other as they passed. She knew the world was a stallion rolling in the blue pasture of ether. She knew that God tore down the old world every evening and built a new one by sun up. It was wonderful to see it take form with the sun and emerge from the gray dust of its making. The familiar people and things had failed her, so she hung over the gate and looked up at the road towards way off. She knew now that marriage did not make love. Janie's first dream was dead, so she became a woman.
Okay.
All right. You're up. Please introduce yourself so people can know who you are. On chapter 4. Yes, we're on chapter 4. Oh, you got it? You got it. Okay. Okay, here you go.
My name is Alicia Granger, and I'm going to be starting on chapter 4. Long before the year was up, Janie noticed that her husband had stopped talking in rhymes to her. He had ceased to wonder at her long black hair and fingered it. 6 months back, he had told her, if I can haul the wood here and chop it for you, look like you ought to be able to tote it inside. My first wife never bothered me about chopping no wood no how. She grabbed that axe and sling chips like a man. You done been spoiled rotten. So Janie had told him, I'm just as stiff as you is stout. If you can stand not to chop and tote wood, I reckon you can stand not to get no dinner. Excuse my friezo liddy, Mr. Killix, but I don't mean to chop the first chip. All you know, I'm gonna chop the wood for you, even if you as stingy as you can be with me. Your grandma and me, myself, done spoiled you now, and I reckon I have to keep up with it. One morning soon, he called her out of the kitchen to the barn. He had the mule all saddled at the gate. Look at here a little bit. Help me out some. Cut up these seed taters for me. All got to go step off a piece. Where you going? Over to Lake City to see a man about a mule. What you need 2 mules for? Lesson you aims to swap off this one. Nah, I needs 2 mules this here. Taters is going to be taters in the fall, bringing big prices. I aims to run 2 plows, and this man I'm talking about has got a mule all gentled up, so even if a woman can handle him. Logan held his wad of tobacco real still in his jaw like a thermometer of his feelings while he studied Janie's face and waited for her to say something. So I thought I might as well go see. He tagged on and swallowed to kill time, but Janie said nothing except, I'll cut them taters for you when you coming back. You know exactly, round dusk dark, I reckon. It's a sort of long trip, especially if I have to lead one on the way back. When Jenny had finished indoors, she sat down in the barn with the potatoes. But springtime reached her in there, so she moved everything to a place in the yard where she could see the road. The noon sun filtered through the leaves of a fine oak tree where she sat and made lacy patterns on the ground. She had been there a long time when she heard whistling coming down the road. It was a city-fied, stylish dressed man with his hat set at an angle that didn't belong in these parts. His coat was over his arm, but he didn't need it to represent his clothes. The shirt with the silk sleeve holders was dazzling enough for the world. He whistled, mopped his face, and walked like he knew where he was going. He was a seal brown color, but he acted like Mr. Washburn or somebody like that to Janie. Where would such a man be coming from, and where was he going? He didn't look her no, he didn't look her way nor no other way except straight ahead. So Janie ran to the pump and jerked the handle hard while she pumped. It made a loud noise and also made her heavy hair fall down. So he stopped and looked hard, and then he asked her for a cool drink of water. Jenny pumped it off until she got a good look at the man. He talked friendly while he drank. Joe Starks was the name. Yeah, Joe Starks from in and through Georgie. Been working for white folks all his life. Saved up some money, around $300. Yes, indeed. Right here in his pocket. Kept hearing about them building a new state down here in Florida and sort of wanted to come. But he was making money where he was. But when he heard all about him making a town all out of colored folks, he knew that that was the place he wanted to be. He had always wanted to be a big voice, but the white folks had all to say so where he come from and everywhere else, except in this place that colored folks was building themselves. That was right too. The man that built things out of Bossett. Let colored folks build things too if they wants to crawl over something. He was glad he had his money all saved up. He meant to get there whilst the town was yet a baby. He meant to buy in big. It had always been his wish and desire to be a big voice, and he had to live nearly 30 years to find a chance. Where was Janie's papa and mama? They dead, I reckon. I wouldn't know about them because my grandma raised me. She dead too. She dead too? Well, who's looking after a little girl? Chilly like you. I'm married. You married? You ain't hardly old enough to be weaned. I bet you still crave sugar tits, don't you? Yeah, and I makes in sucks 'em when they notion strikes me. Drink sweetened water too. I loves that myself. Never expects to get too old to enjoy syrup sweetened water when it's cool and nice. Us got plenty syrup in the barn, ribbon cane syrup, if you so desires. Where your husband at, mister? My name is Janie Mae Killick since I got married. Used to be named Janie Mae Crawford. My husband is gone to buy a mule for me to plow. He left me cutting up seed taters. You behind a plow? You ain't got no more business with a plow than a hog is got with a holiday. You ain't got no business cutting up no seed taters either. A pretty doll baby like you is made to sit on the front porch and rock and fan yourself and eat taters that other folks plant just special for you. Janie laughed and drew 2 quarts of syrup from the barrel, and Joe Starks pumped the water bucket full of cool water. They sat under the tree and talked. He was going on down to the new part of Florida, but no harm to stop and chat. He later decided he needed a rest anyway. It would do him good to rest a week or two. Every day after that, they managed to meet in the scrub oaks across the road and talk about when he would be a big ruler of things with her reaping the benefits. Janie pulled back a long time because he did not represent sun up and pollen and blooming trees, but he spoke for far horizon. He spoke for change and chance. Still, she hung back. The memory of Nanny was still powerful and strong. Janie, if you think I aims to tow you off and make a dog out of you, you's wrong. I wants to make a wife out of you. You mean that, Joe? The day you puts your hand in mine, I wouldn't let the sun go down on us single. A man with principles. I'm a man with principles. You ain't never know what it was to be treated like a lady, and I wants to be the one to show you. Call me Jody like you do sometime. Jody, she smiled up at him. But supposing, leave disposing and everything else to me. I'll be down this road a little after sun up tomorrow morning to wait for you. You come, go with me. Then all the rest of your natural life, you can live like you oughta. Kiss me and shake your head. When you do that, your plentiful hair breaks like day. Janie debated the matter that night in bed. Logan, you sleep? If I was, you've been done woke me up calling me. I was thinking real hard about this, about you and me. It's about time you's powerful, independent around here sometime considering. Considering what, for instance? Considering you was born in a carriage, thought no top to it, and your mama and you being born and raised in the white folks' backyard. You didn't say all that when you was begging Nanny for me to marry you. I thought you would appreciate good treatment. Thought I'd take and make something out of you. You think you's white folks by the way you act. Supposing I was to run off and leave you sometime. There, Jenny had put words in his healed in fears. She might run off, sure enough. The thought put a terrible ache in Logan's body, but he thought best to put on scorn. I'm getting sleepy, Janie. Let's don't talk no more. Tain't too many mens would trust you knowing your folks like they do. I might take and find somebody that did trust me and leave you. Shucks, tain't no more fools like me. A whole lot of men's would grin in your face, but they ain't gonna tuck work and feed you. You won't get far and you won't belong. When that big gut reach over and grab that little one, you'll be too glad to come back here. You don't take nothing to count but soul, belly, and cornbread. I'm sleepy. I don't aim to worry my gut into a fiddle string with your sposing, with no sposing. He flopped over resentful in his agony and pretended sleep. He hoped that he had hurt her as she had hurt him. Jenny got up with him the next morning and had the breakfast halfway done when he bellowed from the barn. Janie, Logan called harshly, come help me move this manure pile before the sun gets hot. You don't take a bit of interest in this place. Ain't no use in fooling around in that kitchen all day long. Janie walked to the door with the pan in her hand, still stirring the cornmeal dough, and looked towards the barn. The sun from ambush was threatening the world with red daggers, but the shadows were gray and solid looking around the barn. Logan, with his shovel, looked like a black bear doing some clumsy dance on his hind legs. You don't need my help out here, Logan. You's in your place and I'm in mine. You ain't got no particular place. It's wherever I need you. Get up, move on you, and that quick. Get a move on you, that quick. My mama didn't tell me I was born in no hurry, so what business I got rushing now? Anyhow, that ain't what you's mad about. You's mad cause I don't fall down and wash these 60 acres of ground you got. You ain't done me no favor by marrying me, and if that's what you call yourself doing, I don't thank you for it. You's mad cause I'm telling you what you already know. Logan dropped his shovel and made 2 or 3 clumsy steps towards the house, then stopped abruptly. Don't you change too many words with me this morning. Janie, Janie do, I'll take and change ends with you. Hell, I just wanna, oh hell. I just as good as take you out the white folks' kitchen and set you down on your royal diastasis, and you take and low rate me. I'll take hold that axe and come in there and kill you. You better dry up in there. I'm too honest and hardworking for anybody in your family. That's the reason you don't want me. The last sentence was half a sob and half a cry. I guess some low lifted nigga and grinning in your face and lying to you. Goddamn your hide. Jenny turned from the door without answering and stood still in the middle of the floor without knowing it. She turned wrong side out, just standing there and feeling. When the throbbing calmed a little, she gave Logan's speech a hard thought and placed it beside other things she had seen and heard. When she had finished with that, she dumped the dough on the skillet and smoothed it over with her hand. She wasn't even angry. Logan was accusing her of her mama, her grandmama, and her feelings, and she couldn't do a thing about it, any of it. The soul belly in the pan needed turning. She flipped it over and shoved it back. A little cold water in the coffee pot to settle it. Turned the whole cake with the plate and then made a little laugh. What was she losing so much time for? A feeling of sudden newness and change came over her. Janie hurried out of the front gate and turned south. Even if Joe was not there waiting for her, the change was bound to do her good. The morning road air was like a new dress that made her feel the apron tied around her waist. She untied it and flung it on a low bush beside the road and walked on, picking flowers and making a bouquet. After that, she came to where Joe Starks was waiting for her with a hired rig. He was very solemn and helped her to the seat beside him. With him on it, it sat like some high, ruling chair. From now on until death, she was going to have flower dust and springtime sprinkled over her, over everything. A bee for her bloom. Her old thoughts were going to come in handy now, but new words would have to be made and said to fit them. Green Cove Springs, he told the driver. So they were married there before sundown, just like Joe had said, with new clothes of silk and wool. They sat on the boarding house porch and saw the sun plunge into the same crack in the earth from which the night emerged. Thank you.
You gotta play Janie. Another movie. You could play Janie. Where did the next read? Oh, there you are. Chapter 5.
So introduce yourself. What'd you say? Leaf? Okay.
I love reading books. So.
You do? Okay, cool.
I've been reading since I was 2.
No.
Well, is there any way we could turn it up just a little bit? Oh, okay. Okay, that's cool. Okay. So destiny number 5 is cool. My destiny number. We're on chapter 5. On the train the next day, Joe didn't make many speeches with rhymes to her, but he bought her the best things that the butcher had, like apples and glass lantern full of candies. Mostly he talked about plans for the town when he got there. They were bound to need somebody like him. Janie took a lot of looks at him, and she was proud of what she saw. Kind of portly like rich white folks, strange trains and people in places didn't scare him neither. Where they got off the train at Maitland, he found a buggy to carry them over to the colored town right away. It was early in the afternoon when they got there, so Joe said they must walk over to the place and look around. They locked arms, strode from end to end of the town, and Joe noted the scant dozen of shamefaced houses scattered in the sand and palmetto roots and said, God, they call this a town? Why, it ain't nothing but raw places in the woods. It's a whole heap littler than I thought. Janie admitted her disappointment. Just like I thought, Joe said, a whole heap of talk and ain't nobody doing nothing. God, where's the mayor? He said. He asked somebody, and I want to speak with the mayor. 2 men who were sitting on their shoulder blades under a huge live oak tree almost sat upright at the tone of his voice. They stared at Joe's face and his clothes and his wife. Where y'all come from in such big haste? Lee Coker asked. Mid of Georgie, Starks answered briskly. Joe Starks is my name and from in and through Georgie. You and your daughter going to join with us in fellowship? The other reclining figure asked. Mighty glad to have you. Hicks is the name, Governor Amos. Hicks from Beaufort, South Carolina. Free, single, disengaged. God, I ain't nowhere near old enough to have no grown daughter. This here is my wife. Hicks ain't back and lost interest at once. Where's the mayor? Starks persisted. I want to talk with him. Use my two previous for that, Coca told him. Us ain't got none yet. Ain't got no mayor. Well, who tells y'all what to do? Nobody. Everybody's grown. And then again, hey, I reckon us just ain't thought about it. And no, I ain't. I did think about it one day, Hicks said dreamily, but then I forgot it and ain't thought about it since then. Well, no wonder things ain't no better, Joe commented. I'm buying it here, buying in big. Soon we find some place to sleep tonight, and us men folks got to call people together and form a committee. Then we can get things moving around here. I could point you where you can sleep, Hicks offered. Man got his house done built and his wife ain't come yet. Starks and Janie moved off in a new direction. Moved off in the direction indicated, with Hicks and Coker boring into their backs with looks. That man talks like a section foreman, Coker commented. He's mighty compelling. Shucks, said Hicks. My britches is just as long as his. Just as long as his. And that wife of his, she's son of a combustion of don't go to Georgia and give me one just like her. What with? With my talk, man. It takes money to feed pretty women. They get a lavisher talk. Not like mine. They loves to hear me talk because they can't understand them. My cold talking is too deep. Too much coat to it. You don't believe me, do you? You do know the women I can get my command. You ain't never seen me and I'm out pleasuring and giving pleasure. It's a good thing she married before she seen me. I can get some trouble when I take a notion. and bitches baby around lady and bitches baby around lady people. I'd much rather see all that than to hear about it. Come on, let's go see what you're going to do about this town. They got up, sauntered over to where Starks was living and for the present. Already the town had found the strangers. Joe was on the porch talking to the small group of men. Janie could be seen through the bedroom window, getting settled. Joe had rented the house for a month. The men were all around him and he was talking to them about asking questions. What's the real name of the place? Some say West Mainland and some say Eatonville. That caused Captain Eaton to give us some land along with Mr. Lawrence. But Captain Eaton give the first piece. How much did they give? Oh, about 50 acres. Well, how much did y'all got now? Oh, about the same. That ain't near enough. Who owns the land joining on to what y'all got? Captain Eaton. Where's this Captain Eaton? Over there in the mainland, except when he go visiting on something. Let me speak to my wife a minute about going to see these men. You cannot have no town without some land to build it on. Y'all ain't got enough here to cuss a cat on without getting your mouth full of hair. You ain't got no more land to give away. Y'all needs plenty of money if you want any more. I expects to pay them. The idea was funny to them and they wanted to laugh. They tried hard to hold it in, but enough incredulous laughter burst out of their eyes and leaked from the corners of their mouth to inform anybody of their thoughts. So Joe walked off abruptly. Most of them went along to show him the way and to be there when his bluff was called. Hicks didn't go far. He turned back to the house as soon as he felt he wouldn't be missed from the crowd and mounted the porch. Evening, Miss Starks. Good evening. You reckon you going around here? You reckon you gonna like it around here? I reckon so. Anything I can do to help out, why can you call on me? Much obliged. There was a long dead pause. Janie was not jumping at her chance like she ought to. Looked like she hardly knows he was there. She needed waking up. Folks must be mighty close mouth where you come from. That's right, but must be different at your home. He was a long time thinking, but finally he saw and stumbled down the steps with a surly bye. Goodbye. That night, Coker asked him about it. I saw y'all when y'all dug back Stark's house. Well, how'd y'all make out? Who, me? I ain't been near the place, man. I ain't been down to the lake trying to catch me. I've been down the lake trying to catch me some fish. Huh. That Omenade ain't so awfully pretty now that y'all done take a second look at her. I mean, I had to sort of pass by the house on the way back to see her good, and ain't nothing to her except that long hair. And anyhow, I done took unliking to the man. He wouldn't harm it. I wouldn't harm him at all. She ain't half as pretty as the girls and run off and left up in South Carolina. Hicks done got mad at you and say you was lying if I didn't know you was good. You just talking to consolate yourself by word of mouth. You done got a willing mind, but you's too light behind. A whole heap of men done seen the same thing you seen, but they got better sense than you. You ought to know you can't take no woman like that from no man like him. The man that's up and buys 200 acres of land and one whack and pays cash for it. No, he didn't buy it. Showing up. Oh, he sure did come off with them papers in his pocket. He done caught a meeting on the porch tomorrow. Ain't never seen no such a colored man before in all my bone days. He gonna put up a store and put up his office from the government. That irritated Hicks. He didn't know why. He was the average mortal. It troubled him to get used to the world one way, and then suddenly it turned different. He wasn't ready to think of colored people in post offices yet. He laughed boisterously. Y'all let that straight darky tell y'all any old lie. A colored man sitting up on the post office? He made an obscene sound. He liable to do it, Hicks. I hope so anyhow. Us colored folks is too envious of one another. That's how we come up and gets no further than us do. Us talks to the white man keeping us down. Shucks. He don't have to. He keeps ourselves down. Now, who said I didn't want the man to get his post office? He can be the king of Jerusalem for all I care. Still, there ain't no use to telling lies because a heap of folks don't know no better. Y'all common sense ought to tell you the white folks ain't gonna tell her no, allow him to run no post office. That we know, Hicks. He said he can, and I believe that he know what he's talking about. I reckon if colored folks got their own town, they can have post offices and whatsoever they please, regardless. And then again, I don't expect white folks way off yonder to give a damn. Let us wait and see. Oh, I'm waiting, all right. Specs to keep on waiting till hell freeze over. I get reconciled that women don't want you. She got to learn that the women in the world ain't been brought up no turpentine still and no sawmill camp. There's some women that just ain't for you to broach. You can get her with no fish. You can get her with no fish sandwich. They argued a bit more and then went into the house where Joe was found. Him in his shirt sleeves, standing with his legs wide apart, asking questions and smoking a cigar. Where the closest sawmill? He was asking Tony Taylor. About 7 miles going towards Apopka, Tony told him, thinking about building right away. Yeah, but not the house I expects to live in. That can wait till I make up my mind and I want to locate it. I figured we need a store in a big hurry. A store? Tony shouted in surprise. Yeah, a store right here in town with everybody in it. What you what you needs. Tain't a bit of us and everybody proagging over the mainland and buying a little meal and flour when they get it right here. That would be kind of nice, Brother Stark, since you mentioned it. I got, of course, it would. And again, the store is in good. The store is good in other ways. I gotta have a place to be at when folks come to buy the land. And furthermore, everything has got to have a center and a heart in. And the town ain't no different from nowhere else. It would be a natural for the store to be a meeting place for the town. That shows the truth now. Oh well, we had this town all fixed up correctly. Don't miss being at the meeting tomorrow. Just about time for the committee meeting to call to meet on the porch the next day. The first wagon load of lumber drove up, and Jody went to show them where to put it. Told Janie to hold the committee there until he got back, but he didn't want to miss them. He meant to count every foot that the lumber before it touched the ground. He could have saved his breath, and Janie could have kept right on with it, what she was doing. In the first place, everybody was late in coming. And then in the second thing, as soon as they heard where Jody was, they kept right on there and where the new lumber was rattling off the wagon and being piled under the big live oak tree. So that's where the meeting was held, with Tony Taylor acting as chairman and Jody doing all the talking. A day was for the roads. A day was named for the roads, and they all agreed to bring axes and things like that to chop out 2 roads running each way. That applied to everybody except Tony and Coker. They could carpenter, so Jody hired them to go to work on his store bright and soon as the next morning. Jody himself would be busy driving from town to town, telling people about Eatonville and drumming up citizens to move there. Jenny was astonished to see the money Jody had spent for the land and come back to him so fast. 10 new families bought lots and moved to town in 6 weeks. It all looked too big and rushing to keep track of. But the store had a complete roof. Jody had canned goods piled on the floor and was selling so much that he didn't have time to go off on his talking tours. She had her first taste of presiding over it the day it was complete and finished. Jody told her to dress up, stand in the store all evening. Everybody was coming sort of fixed up, but he didn't mean for nobody's wife to rank with her. She must look on herself as the bell cow. The other women were the gang. So she put on one of her bought dresses and went up to the new cut road, all dressed in wine color red. Her silken ruffles rustled and muttered about her. The other women had on percale and calico, with here and there a head rag among the older ones. Nobody was buying anything that night. They didn't come there for that. They came to make a welcome. So Joe knocked in the head of a barrel of soda crackers and then cut some cheese. Everybody come right forward and made merry. I got is my treat. I got is my treat. Jody gave one of his big laughs and stood up and stood back. Janie dipped up the lemonade like he told her. A big tin cup full of everybody. Tony Taylor felt so good when it was all gone that he felt to make a speech. Ladies and gentlemen, we's come together and gathered here to welcome to our midst one who has seen fit to cast in his lot amongst us. He didn't come himself neither. He didn't just come himself neither. He seen fit to bring his light, his home, and his wife amongst us also. She couldn't look no more better and no nobler if she was the Queen of England. It's a pleasure for her to be here amongst us, brother Starks. We welcomes you and all that you have fit to bring among us. Your beloved wife, your store, your land. A big mouth burst of laughter cut him short. That'll do, Tony, Lige Miles yelled out. Miss, Starks is a smart man. He's all willing to acknowledge to that. But the day that he comes wagging down the road with 200 acres of land over his shoulder, I wants to be there to see it. Another big blow of laughter. Tony was a little peeved at everyone's speech of his lifetime ruined like that. All y'all know is all y'all know what was meant and don't see how come, because you jump up to make speeches and don't know how. Lai said, I was speaking just all right before you stuck your bill in. Nah, you wasn't, Tony. You way out of jurisdiction. You can't welcome a man and his wife that you made a comparison about Isaac and Rebecca at the well, else it don't show the love between them if you don't. Everybody agreed that that was right. It was sort of a pitiful for Tony to not to know that he couldn't make a speech without saying that. Some tittered at his ignorance. So Tony said testily, if all them that's going to cut the monkey is done to cut it and through it, we thank Brother Starks for a response. So Joe Starks and his cigar took the center of the floor. I thanks you all for your kind of welcome and for extending to me the right hand of fellowship. I can see that this town is full of union and love. I means to put my hands to the plow here and strain every nerve to make this our town, the metropolis of the state. So maybe I better tell you in case you don't know that if we expect to move on, us got to get incorporate like every other town in America. Us got to incorporate and us got to have a mayor. If things to be done and done right, I welcome you all on behalf of me and my wife to this store and to the other things to come. Amen. Tony led the loud hand clapping and was out of the center of the floor when it stopped. Brothers and sisters, since we can never expect to better our choice, I move we make Brother Starks our mayor until we can see further. Second that motion, it was everybody talking at once. It was no need of putting it to a vote. And now we listen to a few words of encouragement from Mrs. Mayor Starks. A burst of applause was cut short by Joe taking the floor himself. Thank you for your compliments, but my wife don't know nothing about no speech making. I never married her for her nothing like that. She a woman and her place is in the home. Janie made her face laugh after a short pause. But it wasn't too easy. She had never thought of making a speech and didn't know if she cared to make one at all. It must have been the way that Joe spoke out without giving her a chance to say anything one way or another that took the bloom off the things. But anyway, she went down the road behind them and the night was feeling cold. He strode along, invested with his new dignity, thought and planned out loud, unconscious of her thoughts. The mayor of town like this can't lay around home too much. The place needs building up, Janie. I'll get hold of somebody to help out in the store, and you can look after the things whilst I drum up some things otherwise. Oh, Jody, I can't do nothing with no store unless you use here. I can maybe come in and help you when things get rushed, but I don't see how you come. You can't. Ain't nothing at all hinder you if you got a thimble full of sense. I got to much else on my hands as mayor. This town needs some light right now. And it is a little dark right along here. Of course it is. Tain't no use in scuffling over these stumps and roots in the dark. I'll call a meeting about the dark and the roots right away. I'll sit on this first case first thing. The very next day, with money out of his own pocket, he sent off to Sears, Roebuck and Company for the street lamp and told the town to meet the following Thursday night to vote on it. Nobody had ever thought of street lamps, and some of them said it was a useless notion. They went up so far as to vote against it, but the majority ruled. But the whole town got vain over it after it came. And that was because the mayor didn't just take it off the crate and stick it up on a post. He unwrapped it and had it wiped off carefully and put it up on a showcase for a week for everybody to see. Then he set a time for the lightning and sent word all around Orange County for one and all to come to the lamp lighting. He sent men out to the swamp to cut the finest and the straightest cypress posts that they could find, and kept on sending them back to hunt another one until they found one that pleased them. He talked to the people already about hospitality of the occasion. Y'all know we can't invite people to our town just dry long. So we gotta feed them something. We ain't nothing but people likes better than barbecue. I give one whole hog my own self. Seem like the rest of y'all put together and ought to be able to scrape up 2 more. Tell your women folks to do round about some pies and some cakes and sweet potato pone. That's the way it went too. The women got together and the sweets, and the men looked after the meats. The day before the lightning, they dug a big hole in the back of the store and filled it full of oak wood and burned it down to the glowing bed of coals. It took them the whole night to barbecue the 3 hogs. Hambo and Pearson had a full charge while the others helped out with the turning of the meat. And now and then, while Hambo swabbed it all over the sauce, in between times, they told stories, laughed, and told more stories and sung songs. They cut up all sorts of capers with the meat as it slowly came to perfection with the seasoning penetrating to the bone. The younger boys had to rig up the sawhorses with boards for the women to use as tables. Then it was after sun up, and everybody not needed went home to rest up for the feast. By 5 o'clock, the town was full of every kind of vehicle and swarming with people. They wanted to see the lamp lit at dusk, near the time Joe assembled everybody in the street before the store and made a speech. Folks, the sun is going down. The sun maker brings it up in the morning, and the sun maker sends it to bed at night. Us poor weak humans can't do nothing to hurry it up nor to slow it down. All we can do if we want a light after setting or before the rising is to make some light ourselves. So that's how come when the lamps was made. This evening we's assembled here to light a lamp. This occasion is something for us to remember to our dying day. The first street lamp in the colored town. Lift your eyes and gaze on it. And when I touch the match to the lamp wick, let the light penetrate inside of you and let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine. Brother Davis, lead us in the word of prayer. Ask us a blessing on this town in most particular manner. When Davis chanted a traditional prayer poem with his own variations, Joe mounted the box that had been placed for the purpose and opened the brazen door of the lamp. As the word, amen was said, he touched the light that matched to the wick. And Miss Bogle, alto, burst out in. We walk in the light, the beautiful light. Come where the dewdrops of mercy shine bright. Shine all around us by day and by night. Jesus, the light of the world. All of the people took it up and sung it and over until it was wrung dry and no further innovations of tone and tempo were conceivable. They hushed and ate barbecue. And when it was all over, at that night in bed, Jody asked Janie, "Well, honey, how you like being Miss Mayor?" "It's all right, I reckon, but you don't, you thinks it keeps us in kind of a strain?" "Strain? You mean the cooking and waiting on folks?" "Nah, Jody, just looks like it keeps us in some way we ain't natural with each other. Y'all's always talking and fixing things, and I feels like I'm just marking time. Hope it soon gets over." "Over, Janie? I ain't even started good. I told you it the very first beginning at the aim to be the big voice. You ought to be glad, because that makes a big woman out of you." A feeling of coldness and fear took hold of her. She felt far away from things and lonely. Janie soon began to feel the impact of awe and envy against her sensibilities. The wife of the mayor was not just another woman, as she had supposed. She slept with authority, and so she was part of it in the town mind. She couldn't get but so close to most of them in spirit. It was especially noticeable after Joe had forced through a town ditch to drain a street in front of the store. They had murmured hotly about slavery being over, but every man filled his assignment. There was something about Joe Starks that cowed the town. It was not because of physical fear. He was no fist fighter. I mean, the bulk was not even imposing as men go. Neither was it because he was more literate than the rest. Something else made men give way before him. He had a bow down command in his face. Every step he took made made the thing more tangible. Take, for instance, the new house of his. It had 2 stories with porches, with banisters and such things. The rest of the town looked like servants' quarters surrounding the big house. And different from everybody else in the town, he put off mowing until it had been painted in and out. And look at the way it painted. It was glowy and sparkly white, the kind of promenading white that the houses of Bishop Whipple and W.B. Jackson and the Vanderpools wore. It made the feeling feel sunny. It made the village feel funny talking to him, just like he was anybody else. Then it was a matter of spittoons. No matter, and no sooner was he all set as the mayor, postmaster, landlord, storekeeper than he bought a desk like Mr. Hill and Mr. Galloway over at the Maitland with one of those swing around the chairs to it. What was with him biting down on cigars and saving his breath to talk and swinging around in that chair and weaken people? And then he spit on that gold-looking vase, and anybody would have been glad to put on a front room table. Said it was a spittoon, just like his used to be a boss man, used to have up in his bank up there in Atlanta. Didn't have to get up and go to the door every time he had to go spit. Didn't spit on the floor neither. Had to go did up spitting pot right handy. But he went further than that. He bought a little lady's size spitting pot for Janie to spit in. Had it right in the parlor with the little sprigs of flowers painted all around the sides. It took people by surprise because most of the women dipped snuff. And of course they spit cup in the house. But how could they know up-to-date folks were spitting in flowery little things like that? It sort of made the rest of them feel like they had been taken advantage of, like things had been kept from them. Maybe more things in the world besides spitting pots had been hidden from them when they wasn't told no better than to spit in tomato cans. It was bad enough for white people, but when one of your own color could be so different, it put you in a wonder. Like it was like seeing your sister turn into a gator, a familiar strangeness You keep seeing your sister in the gator, and the gator is in your sister, and you rather not. So there was no doubt that the town respected him and even admired him in a way. But any man who walks in the way of power and property is bound to meet hate. So when you speaker stood up and the occasion demanded and said, "Our beloved mayor," it was one of those statements that everybody said nobody actually believes, like God is everywhere. It's just his handle to wind up and tongue with. As time went on, the benefits had conferred up the town receded in time. And they sat on the store porch while he was busy inside and discussed them. Like one day after he caught Henry Pitts with a wagon full of load of his ribbon cane and took the cane away from Pitts and made him leave town. Some of them thought Starks ought not have done that. He has so much cane and everything else. Ooh, what was that? It was just I know what a tongue. What is it? Oh, sorry. Like when he caught Henry Pitts with a wagon load of his ribbon cane, and he took the cane away from Pitts and made him leave town. Some of them thought Starks ought not have done that. He said he had so much cane and everything else, but they didn't say that while Joe Starks was on the porch when the mail came from Maitland. He went inside to sort it out, and everybody had their say. Sim Jones started off as soon as he was sure that Starks couldn't hear him. It's a sin and a shame running that poor man away from here like that. Colored folks said, "Ought to be so hard on one another." I don't see it that way at all, Sam Watson says shortly. Let's colored folks learn to work for what they get like everybody else. And nobody ain't stopped Pitts from planting the cane he wanted to. Starks gave him a job, and what more did he want? I know that too, Jones said, but Sam, Joe Starks is too exact with folks. All he done made off with the rest of us, and didn't have all that he when he come here. He didn't have all that when he come here. Yeah, but none of all this you see and you sitting on wasn't here neither when he come. Get a devil his due. But now, Sam, you know that all he do is big belly round and tell other folks what to do. He love obedience out of everybody under the sound of his voice. You can feel a switch in his hand when he talking to you. Oscar Scott complained. That's chastiser feeling he toast sort of giving you a protelepus us culinary lining. He's a whirlwind among breezes. Jeff Bruce threw in. Speaking of winds, he the wind and we's the grass. We bend whichever way he blows. Sam Watson agreed. But at that us needs him. The town wouldn't be nothing if it wasn't for him. He can't help but being sort of bossy. Some folks need thrones, ruling chairs and crowns, and to make the influence felt. He got a throne in the seat of his pants. What I don't like about this man is he talks to unlettered folks with books in his jaws. Hicks complained, showing off his learning. He look at me like you wouldn't think it, but I got a brother pastoring around Ocala that got good learning. If he was here, Joe Starks wouldn't make a fool out of them like he do the rest of y'all. I often wonder how that little wife is making out with him, cause he's a man that changes everything, but nothing don't change him. He know the many times I done thought about that myself. He gets on her every now and then, and she makes little mistakes around the store. What make her keep her head tied up like that? Some old man around the store. Nobody get me to tie no rag on my head if I had hair like that. Right. Maybe he make her do it. I mean, maybe he skeetered some of the rest of us men's might touch it and rounded that store. It show us a hidden mystery to me. She sure don't talk much. The way he rears and pitches in the store, sometimes she make us mistake us sort of ungodly, but she don't mind at all. Reckon they understand one another. The town had basket full of feelings, good and bad, about Joe's positions and possessions, but none had the temerity to challenge him. They bowed down to him rather because he was all of these things, and then again he was all of these things because the town bowed down. So
All right. Thank you so much, Leave. Peter, come on down. And introduce yourself so people know who you are.
Okay.
Okay.
My name is Peter Woods. I'm a partner of Writ Large Press and the assistant at Avenue 50 Gallery. And I'm reading chapter 6 of Their Eyes Were Watching God. Every morning, the world flung itself over and exposed the town to the sun. So Janie had another day. And every day had a store in it, except Sundays. The store itself was a pleasant place, if only she didn't have to sell things. When the people sat around on the porch and passed around the pictures of their thoughts for the others to look at and see, it was nice. The fact that the thought pictures were always crayon and light. The fact that the thought pictures were always crayon enlargements of life made it even nicer to listen to. Take, for instance, the case of Matt Bonner's yellow mule. They had him up for conversation every day the Lord sent. Most especially if Matt was there himself to listen. Sam and Lige and Walter were the ringleaders of the mule talkers. The others threw in whatever they could chance upon, but it seemed as if Sam and Lige and Walter could hear and see more about that mule than the whole country put together. All they needed to see was Matt's long, spare shape coming down the street, and by the time he got to the porch, they were ready for him. Hello, Matt. Evening, Sam. Mighty glad you come along right now, Matt. Me and some others was just talking to you. Come hunt you. What for, Sam? Mighty serious matter, man. Serious. Yeah, man. Leeds would cut in dolefully. It needs your strict attention. You ought not to lose no time. What is it then? You ought to hurry up and tell me. Reckon we better not tell you here at the store. It's too far off to do any good. We better walk on down by the lake Sabella. What's wrong, man? Ain't none of y'all's foolish. I ain't got. Oh whoa! I ain't after none of y'all foolishness now. That mule you on, Matt. You better go see about him. He's bad off. Whereabouts? Did he wade in the lake and an alligator catch him? Worse than that, the women folks got your mule. When I come down around the lake about noontime, my wife and some others had inflate on that ground using his side for a washboard. The great clap of laughter that they had been holding in bursts out. Sam never cracks a smile. Yeah, Matt, that mule is so skinny till the women is using his rib bones for a rub board and hanging things on his hock bones to dry. Matt realized they had been tricking him again, and he laughed, and the laughter makes him mad, and when he gets mad, he stammers. You a stinking lie, Sam, and you four ain't mates. Oh man, ain't no use to you getting mad. You know you don't feed the mule. How he got fit? How he gonna get fat? How he gonna get fat? I does feed him. I give him a full cup of corn every feeding. Lees knows all about that cup of corn. He hid round your barn and watched it. Tain't fed no cup. You measure that corn out of? That's a teacup. I does feed him. He just too mean to get fat. He stay poor and raw bony just for spite. Scared he'll have to work some more. Yeah, you feeds him. Feeds him off a come up and seasons it with rawhide. Just feed. I does feed that ornery varmint. Don't care. I do. I can't get along with him. He fights every inch in front of the plow, and even lay his ears to kick and bite when I go in the stall to feed him. Get reconciled, Matt, Lee soothed. All of us knows he's mean. I seen him when he took off after one of them Roberts chilling in the streets and would have caught him and maybe trampled him to death if the wind hadn't changed all of a sudden. You see, the youngins was trying to make it to the fence upon stock onion patch, and the mule was dead and behind him. I'm in gaining. He's gaining on him every jump. When all of a sudden the wind changed and blew the mule way off his course, him being so poor and everything, and before the ornery varmint could track, the youngins got over the fence. The porch laughed, and Matt got mad again. Maybe the mule takes out after everybody, Sam says, because he thinks everybody he hears coming is Matt Bonner coming to work him on an empty stomach. Oh, no, no, no. Y'all stop that right now, Walter objected. That mule don't think I look like no Matt Bonner. He ain't that dumb. If I thought he didn't know no better, I'd have my picture took and give it to the mule so he could learn better. I ain't got going to low. I ain't going to low and told hold nothing like that against me. Matt struggled to say something, but his tongue failed him, so he jumped down off the porch and walked away as mad as he could be. But that never halted the mule talk. There would be more stories about how poor the brute was, his age, his evil disposition, and his latest caper. Everybody indulged in mule talk. He was next to the mayor in prominence and made better talking. Janie loved the conversation, and sometimes she thought up good stories on the mule, but Joe had forbidden her to indulge. He didn't want her talking after such trashy people. Use Miss Mayor Starks, Janie. God, I can see what a woman your stability would want to be treasuring all that dumb gum grease from folks that don't even know own a house they sleep in. Tain't no earthly use. They just some puny humans playing around they toes of time. Janie noted that while he didn't talk the mule himself, he sat and laughed at it. Laughed his big hey laughs too. But then when Lee, just Sam, or Walter, or some of the other big picture talkers were using the side of the world for a canvas, Joe would hustle her off inside the store to tell her to sell something. Looks like he took pleasure in doing it. Why couldn't he go himself sometimes? She had come to hate the inside of that store anyway. The post office too. People always coming and asking for mail at the wrong time. But just when she was trying to count up something or write in the account book, get her so hackled she'd make the wrong change for stamps. Then, too, she couldn't read everybody's writing. Some folks wrote so funny and spelled things different from what she knew about. As a rule, Joe put up the mail himself, but sometimes when he was off, she had to do it herself, and it always ended up in a fuss. The store itself kept her with a sick headache. The labor of things getting blown, of things down off the shelf, of getting things down off the shelf or out of the barrel was nothing. So long as people wanted only a can of tomatoes or a pound of rice, it was all right. But supposing they went on and said a pound and a half of bacon and a half pound of lard, the whole thing changed from a little walking and stretching to mathematical dilemma. Or maybe cheese was 37 cents a pound and somebody came and asked for a dime's worth. She went through so many silent rebellions over things like that. Such a waste of life and time. But Joe just kept saying that she could do it if she wanted to, and he wanted her to use her privileges. That was the rock she was battered against. This business of the head rag irked her endlessly, but Jody was set on it. Her hair was not going to show in the store. It didn't seem sensible at all. That was because Joe never told Janie how jealous he was. He never told her how often he had seen the other men figuratively wallowing in it as she went about things in the store. And one night, he had caught Walter standing behind Janie and brushing the back of his hand back and forth across the loose end of her braid ever so lightly so as to enjoy the feel of it without Janie knowing what he was doing. Joe was at the back of the store and Walter didn't see him. He felt like rushing forth with that meat knife and chopping off the offending hand. That night he ordered Janie to tie up her hair around the store. That was all. She was there in the store for him to look at, not those others. But he never said anything like that. Just wasn't in him. Take the matter of the yellow mule, for instance. Late one afternoon, Matt came from the west with a halter in his hand. Been hunting for my mule. Anybody seen him? He asked. Seen him soon this morning, all behind the schoolhouse, Lum said. About 10 o'clock or so. He must have been out all night, the way he was over there that early. He was, Matt answered. Seen him last night, but I couldn't catch him. I'm glad to get him in tonight because I got some plowing for him in the morning tomorrow. Done promised to plow Thompson's Grove. Reckon you'll ever get through the job with that mule frame? Lee asked. Oh, that mule is plenty strong, just evil and don't want to be led. That's right. They tell me he brought you. They tell me he brought you here to this town. Say you started to Mechanipe, but that mule had better sense and brung you on here. It's a lie. I set out for this town when I left West Florida. You mean to tell me you rode that mule all the way from West Florida down here? Sure he did, Leeds, but he didn't mean to. He was satisfied up there, but the mule wasn't. So one morning he got straddled on the mule, and he took and brought him off. Mule had sense. Folks up that way don't eat biscuit bread but once a week. There was always a little seriousness behind the teasing of Matt, so when he got huffed and walked on off, nobody minded. He was known to buy side meat by the slice, carried home little bags of meal and flour in his hands. He didn't seem to mind too much as long as it didn't cost him anything. About half an hour after they left, they heard the braying of the mule at the edge of the woods. He was coming past the store very soon. Let's catmatch mule for him and have some fun. Now, Lum, you know that mule ain't aiming to let himself be caught. Let's watch you do it. When the mule was in front of the store, Lum went out and tackled him. The brute jerked up his head, laid back his ears, and rushed off to the attack. Lum had to run for safety. 5 or 6 more men left the porch and surrounded the fractious beast, goosing him in the sides and making him show his temper. But he had more spirit left than body. He was soon panting and heaving from the effort of spinning his old carcass around. Everybody was having fun at the mule baiting, all but Janie. She snatched her head away from the spectacle and began muttering to herself, they ought to be ashamed of themselves, teasing that poor brute beast like they is. Done been worked to death, done had his disposition ruined with mistreatment, and now all they got finished deviling him with to death. Wish I had my way with them all. She walked away from the porch and found something to busy herself with in the back of the store, so she did not hear Jody when he stopped laughing. She didn't know that he had heard her, but she did hear him yell out, Lum, God, that's enough. Y'all done had your fun now. Stop your foolishness and go tell Matt Bonner I wants to have a talk with him right away. Janie came back from the front and sat down. She didn't say anything, and neither did Joe. But after a while, he looked down at his feet and said, Janie, I reckon you better go fetch me them old black gaiters. These tan shoes set my feet on fire. Plenty of room in them, but they hurts regardless. She got up without a word and went off for the shoes. A little war of defense for helpless things was going on inside of her. People ought to have some regard for helpless things. She wanted to fight about it. But I hates disagreements and confusions, so I better not talk. It makes it hard to get along. She didn't hurry back. She fumbled around long enough to get her face straight. When she got back, Joe was talking with Matt. $15? That God, you's crazy as a Betsy bug. $5. Lest we strike a compromise, Brother Mayor. Let's make it 10. $5, Joe. Joe rolled his cigar in his mouth and rolled his eyes away indifferently. If that mule is worth something to you, Brother Mayor, he's worth more to me. Most special when I got a job and work tomorrow. $5. All right, Brother Mayor. If he wants to rob a poor man like me of everything he got to make a living with, I'll take the $5. That mule's been with me for 23 years. It's mighty hard. Mayor Starks deliberately changed his shoes before he reached in his pocket for the money. By that time, Matt was ringing and twisting like a hen on a hot brick. But as soon as his hand closed on the money, his face broke into a grin. Bet you're trading that time, Starks. That mule is liable to be dead before the week is out. You won't get no work out of him. Didn't buy him for no work. I brought the varmint to let him rest. You didn't have gumption enough to do it. A respectful silence fell in the place. Sam looked at Joe and said, "That's a new idea about varmints, Mayor, but I likes it my own self. It's a noble thing you done." Everybody agreed with that. Janie stood still while they all made comments. When it was all done, she stood in front of Joe and said, "Jody, that was a mighty fine thing for you to do. Tain't everybody would have thought of it, 'cause it ain't no everyday thought. Freeing that mule makes a mighty big man out of you. Something like George Washington and Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. He had the whole United States to rule, so he freed the Negroes. You got a town, so you freed a mule. You have to have power to free things, and that makes you like a king or something around here." Hambo said, "Your wife is a born orator, Starks. Us never knowed that before. She put just the right words to our thoughts." Joe bit down hard on his cigar and beamed all around, but he never said a word. The town talked it up for 3 days and said just what they would have done if they had been rich men like Joe Starks. Anyhow, a free mule in town was something new to talk about. Starks piled fodder under the big tree near the porch, and the mule was usually around the store like other citizens. Nearly everybody took the habit of fetching along a handful of fodder to throw on the pile. He almost got fat, and then they took a great pride in him. New lies sprung out about his free mule doings. How he pushed open Lindsay's kitchen door and slept in the place one night and fought until they made coffee for his breakfast. How he struck his head in the Pearson's window when the family was at the table and Mr. Pearson mistook him for Reverend Pearson and handed him a plate. He ran Miss Tully off the croquet ground for having such an ugly shape. He ran and caught up with Becky Anderson on the way to Maitland so as to keep his head out of the sun under her umbrella. He got tired of listening to Redmond's long-winded prayer and went inside the Baptist church and broke up the meeting. He did everything but let himself be bridled and visit Matt Bronner. But way after a while, he died. Lum found him up under the big tree on his raw, bony back with all 4 feet up in the air. That wasn't natural and it didn't look right, but Sam said it would have been more unnatural for him to have laid down on his side and died like any other beast. He had seen death coming and had stood his ground and fought it like a natural man. He fought it out to the last breath. Naturally, he didn't have time to straighten himself out. Death had to take him like it found him. Then when the news got around, it was like the end of a war or something like that. Everybody that could knocked off from work to stand around and talk. But finally, there was nothing to do but drag him out like all other dead brutes. Drag him out to the edge of the hammock, which was far enough to satisfy sanitary conditions in the town. The rest was up to the buzzards. Everybody was going to the dragging out. The news had got Mayor Starks out of bed before time. His pair of gray horses were out under the tree, and the men were just fooling with the gear when Janie arrived at the store with Joe's breakfast. My God, Lum, you fasten up this store good before you leave. You hear me? He was eating fast and talking with his one eye shut out the door on the operation. What you telling him to fasten up for, Jody? Janie asked, surprised. Because there won't be nobody here to look after the store. I'm going to the Dragon out myself. Tain't nothing so important I got to do today, Jody. How come I can't go along with you to the Dragon out? Joe was struck speechless for a minute. Why, Janie? You wouldn't be seen at a Dragon out, would you? Would any and everybody passel pushing and shoving with their no manner selves? No, no. You would be there with me, wouldn't you? That's right. But I'm a man, even if I is the mayor. But the mayor's wife is something different again. Anyhow, they's liable to need me to say a few words over the carcass, this being a special case. But you ain't going off in all that mess with the commonness. I'm surprised at you for asking. He wiped his lips of ham gravy and pulled on his hat. Shut the door behind you, Janie. Lum's too busy with the horses. After more shouting of advice and orders and useless comments, the town escorted the carcass off. No, the carcass moved off with the town and left Janie standing in the doorway. Out in the swamp, they made great ceremony over the mule. They mocked everything human in death. Starks led off with a great eulogy on our departed citizen, our most distinguished citizen, and the grief he left behind him. The people loved the speech. It made him more solid than building the schoolhouse had done. He stood on the distended belly of the mule for a platform and made gestures. When he stepped down, they hoisted Sam up, and he talked about the mule as a school teacher first. Then he set his hat like John Harrison and imitated his preaching. He spoke of the joys of mule heaven to which the dear brother had departed, this valley of sorrow. The mule angels flying around, the miles of green corn and cool water, a pasture of pure bran with a river of molasses running through it. And more glorious of all, no map bonner, with plow lines and halters to come in and corrupt. Up there, mule angels would have people to ride on, and from his place beside the glittering throne, the dear departed brother would look down into hell and see the devil plowing Matt Bonner all day long in the hell-hot sun and laying the rawhide to his back. With that, the sisters got mock happy and shouted and had to be held up by the menfolk. Everybody enjoyed themselves to the highest, and then finally the mule was let to the already impatient buzzards. They were holding a great flying meeting way up over the heads of the mourners and some of the nearby stoop-shouldered forms. As soon as the crowd was out of sight, they closed in circles. The near ones got near and the far ones got nearer. A circle, a swoop, and a hoop with spread out wings. Close in, till some of the more hungry or daring perched on the carcass. They wanted to begin, but the parson wasn't there, so a messenger was sent to the ruler in a tree where he sat. The flock had to wait the white-headed leader, but it was hard. They jostled each other and pecked at heads in hungry irritation. Some walked up and down the beast from head to tail to head. The parson sat motionless in a dead pine tree about 2 miles off. He scented the matter as quickly as any of the rest, but decorum demanded that he sit oblivious until he was notified. Then he took off with ponderous flight and circled and lowered until the others danced in joy and hungered at his approach. He finally lit on the ground and walked around the body to see if it were really dead, peered in its nose and mouth, examined it well from end to end, and leaped upon it, bowed, and the others danced a response. That being over, he balanced and asked, "What killed this man?" The chorus answered, bear, fat. What killed this man? Bear, fat. What killed this man? Bear, fat. Who'll stand this funeral? We? Well, all right now. So he picked out the eyes in the ceremonial way, and the feast went on. The yellow mule was gone from the town except for the porch talk and for the children visiting his bleached bones now and then in the spirit of adventure. Joe returned to the store full of pleasure and good humor, but he didn't want Janie to notice it because he saw that she was sullen and he resented that. She had no right to be the way he thought things out. She wasn't even appreciative of his efforts, and she had plenty cause to be. Here he was just pouring honor all over her, building a high chair for her to sit in and overlook the world, and she here pouting about it? Not that he wanted anybody else, but just too many women would have been glad to be in her place. He ought to box her jaws. He didn't feel like fighting today, so he made an attack upon her position backhand. I had to laugh at the people out there in the woods this morning, Janie. You can't help but laugh at the capers they cut. But all the same, I wish my people would get more business in them and not spend so much time on foolishness. Everybody can't be like you, Jody. Somebody is bound to want to laugh and play. Who don't you love to laugh and play? You make out like you don't anyhow. My God, I don't make out no such lie. But it's a time for all things. And it's awful to see so many people don't want nothing but a full belly and a place to lay down and sleep afterwards. It makes me sad sometimes, and then again, it makes me mad. They say things sometimes that tickle me nearly to death, but I won't just laugh to disencourage them. Janie took the easier way from the fuss. She didn't change her mind, but she agreed with her mouth. Her heart said, even so, but you don't have to cry about it. But sometimes Sam Watson and Lee Moss forced a belly laugh out of Joe himself with their eternal arguments. It never ended because there was no end to reach. It was a contest in hyperbole and carried on for no other reason. Maybe Sam would be sitting on the porch when Lee walked up. If nobody was there to speak of, nothing happened. But if the town was there, like on Saturday night, Leeds would come up with a very grave air. Couldn't even pass the time of day for being so busy thinking. Then, when he was asked what was the matter, in order to start him off, he'd say, "This question done about drove me crazy. And Sam, he knows so much into things. I want some information on the subject." Walter Thomas was due to speak up and egg the matter on. "Yeah, Sam always got more information than he knows what to do with. He's bound to tell you whatever it is you wants to know." Sam begins an elaborate show of avoiding the struggle that draws everybody onto the porch. "How come you want me to tell you? You always claim God done met you around the corner and talked his inside business with you. Tain't no use in asking me nothing. I'm questioning you. Questionizing you. How you gonna do that, Sam? When I arrived this conversation myself, I'm asking you. Asking me what? You ain't told me the subject yet. Don't aim to tell you. I aims to keep you in the dark all the time. If you're a smart like you let on you is, you find out. You scared to let me know what it is? Because you know I'll tear it to pieces. You've got to have a subject to talk from. You got to have a subject to talk from. You can't talk. If a man ain't got no bounds, he ain't got no place to stop. By this time, they are centered of the world. They are the center of the world. Well, all right then. Since you own up, you ain't smart enough to find out what I'm talking about. I'll tell you. What is that keeps a man from getting burnt on a red hot stove? Caution or nature? Shucks, I thought you had something hard to ask me. Walter can tell you that. If the conversation's too deep for you, how come you don't just tell me so and hush up? Walter can't tell me nothing of the kind. I'm an educated man. I keeps my arrangements in my hands, and if it keeps me up all night long studying about it, Walter ain't liable to help me none. I need you. I need a man like you. And then again, Liege, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell. I'm going to run this conversation from a gnat hill to a lice. It's nature that's keeping a man's hand off the red hot stove. Uh-huh. I know you were gonna crawl up in that holler, but I aims to smoke you right out. Tain't no nature at all. It's caution, Sam. Tain't no such thing. Nature tells you not to fool with no red hot stove, and you don't do it neither. Listen, Sam, if it was nature, nobody would have had to look out for babies touching stoves, would they? Because they just naturally wouldn't touch it. But they sure will. So it's caution. No, it ain't. It's nature, because nature makes caution. It's the strongest thing that God ever made now. Fact is, it's the only thing God ever made. He made nature, and nature made everything else. Nah, nature didn't either. A whole heap of things ain't even been made yet. Tell me something you know of nature ain't been made. She ain't made it so you can ride a butt-headed cow and hold on to the horns. Yeah, but that ain't your point. Yeah, it is too. No, it ain't neither. Well, what is my point? You ain't got none so far. Yeah, he is too, Walter cut in. The red hot stove is his point. He know mighty much, but he ain't proved it yet. Sam, I say it's caution, not nature that keeps folks off the red hot stove. How's the sun going to be before his paw? Nature is the first of everything. Ever since self was self, nature's been keeping folks off of red hot stoves. That caution you talking about ain't nothing but a humbug. He's an insect that nothing he got belongs to him. He got eyes like something else, wings like something else, everything. Even his hum is the sound of something else. Man, what you talking about? Caution is the greatest thing in the world. If it wasn't for caution, show me something that caution ever made. Look what nature took and done. Nature got so high on black in a black hen, she got to lay white eggs. Now you tell me, how come? What got into man that he's got to have hair around his mouth? Nature. That ain't. The porch was hollering now. Starks left the store to Hezekiah Potts, the delivery boy, and came and come and took a seat in his high chair. Look at that great big old scoundrel beast up there at Hall's filling station. The great big old scoundrel. He eats up all the folks out of the house and then eats the house. Oh, tain't no such a varmint nowhere near nowhere that can eat no house. That's a lie. I was there yesterday and ain't seen nothing like that. Where is he? I didn't see him, but I reckon he is in the backyard someplace. But they got his picture out front there. He was nailing up when I came passing there this evening. Well, all right now, if he eats up houses, how come he don't eat up the filling station? That's because they got him tied up so he can't. They got a great big picture telling how many gallons of that Sinclair high compression gas he drank at one time, and now he's more than a million years old. It ain't nothing more than a million years old. That picture right up there where everybody can see it. They can't make the pictures until they see the thing, can they? How are they going to tell you he's a million years old? Nobody was born that far back. By the rings on his tail, I reckon. Man, these white folks got ways of telling anything they wants to know. Well, where had he been at all this time then? They caught him over there in Egypt. Seemed like he used to hang around there and eat up the pharaoh's tombstones. They got the picture of him doing it. Nature's high in a varmint like that. Nature and salt. That's what makes him strong and makes up strong man like Big John the Conqueror. He was a man with salt in him. He could give a flavor to anything. Yeah, but he was a man that was more than man. Tain't no more like him. He wouldn't dig potatoes and he wouldn't rake hay. He wouldn't take a whipping and he wouldn't run away. Oh yeah, somebody else could if they tried hard enough. Me myself, I got salt in me. If if like man flesh, I could eat some man every day. Some of them are so trashy they'd let me eat them. Lord, I love to talk about Big John, lest we tell lies on old John. But here comes Bootsy and Teddy and Big Woman down the street making out they are pretty by the way they walk. They got that fresh new taste about them, like young mustard greens in the spring. And the young men on the porch are just bound to tell them about it and buy them some treats. Here come my order right now, Charlie Jones announces and scrambles off the porch to meet him. But he has plenty of competition, a pushing, shoving show of gallantry. They all beg the girls to just buy anything they can think of. Please let them pay for it. Joe is begged to wrap up all the candy in the store and order more. All the peanuts and soda water, everything. Gal, I'm a crazy about you, Charlie goes on to the entertainment of everybody. I'll do anything in the world except work for you and give you my money. The girl and everybody else help laugh. They know it's not courtship, it's acting out courtship, and everybody is in the play. The three girls hold the center of the stage till Daisy Blunt comes walking down the street in the moonlight. Daisy is walking a drum tune. You can almost hear it by looking at the way she walks. She is black and she knows the white clothes look good on her, so she wears them for dress up. She's got those big black eyes with plenty shiny white in them that make them shine like brand new money, and she knows that God gave women what God gave women eyelashes for too. Her hair is not what you might call straight. It's Negro hair, but it's got a kind of white flavor, like the piece of string out of a ham. It's not ham at all, but it's been around ham and got the flavor. It was spread down thick and heavy over her shoulders, looked just right under the big white hat. Lord, 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 that same Charlie Jones exclaimed, rushing over to Daisy. It must be a recess in heaven if St. Peter is letting his angels out like this. You got three men already laying at the point of death about you, and here's another fool that's willing to make time on your gang. All the rest of the single men had crowded around Daisy by this time. She is parading and blushing at the same time. If you know anybody that's about to die, let me know about me. You know more than I do, Daisy bridled. Wished I knew who that is. No, Daisy, you know Jim and Dave and Lum is about to kill one another about you. Don't stand up here and tell that big old got that wrong. They a mighty hush mouth about it if they is. They ain't never told me nothing. You talk too fast. Here, Jim and Dave is right up on the porch, and Lum is inside the store. A big burst of laughter at Daisy's discomfiture. The boys had to act out their rivalry too. Only this time, everybody knew they meant some of it. But all the same, the porch enjoyed the play and helped out whenever extras were needed. David said, Jim don't love Daisy. He don't love you like I do. Jim bellowed indignantly. Who don't love Daisy? I know you ain't talking about me. Dave, well, all right, let's prove this thing right now. We'll prove right now who loved this gal the best. How much time is y'all willing to make for Daisy? Jim says 20 years. Dave, see, I told you that nigga don't love you. Me, I'll be the judge to hang me. I'll be the judge to hang me. It wouldn't take nothing less than life. There was a big long laugh from the porch. Then Jim had to demand a test. Dave, how much would you be willing to do for Daisy if she was to turn fool enough to marry you? Me and Daisy done talked that over. But if you just got to know, I'd buy Daisy a passenger train and give it to her. Huh, is that all? I'd buy her a steamship, then I'd hire some men to run it for her. Daisy, don't let Jim fool you with his talk. He don't aim to do nothing for you. A little old steamship? Daisy, I'll take a job cleaning out the Atlantic Ocean for you any time you say you so desire. There was a great laugh, and they all hushed to listen. Daisy, Jim began, you know my heart and all the ranges of my mind. You know if I was riding up on an aeroplane way up in the sky, and I looked down and seen you walking and knowed you had to walk 10 miles to get home, I'd step backwards off that airplane just to walk home with you. There was one of those big blowout laughs, and Janie was wallowing in it. Then Jody ruined it all for her. Miss Bogle came walking down the street towards the porch. Miss Bogle, who was many times a grandmother, but had a blushing air of coquetry about her that cloaked her sunken cheeks. She saw a fluttering fan before her face and magnolia blooms and sleepy lakes under the moonlight when she walked. There was no obvious reason for it. It was just so. Her first husband had been a coachman, but studied jury to win her. He had finally become a preacher to hold her till his death. Her second husband worked in Phone's Orange Grove, but tried to preach when he caught her eye. He never got any further than a class leader, but that was something to offer. It proved his love and pride. She was a wind on the ocean. She moved men, but the helm determined the port. Now this night, she mounted the steps, and the men noticed her until she passed inside the door. "My God," Jamie Stark said impatiently. "Why don't you go on and see what Miss Bogle want? What you waiting on?" Janie wanted to hear the rest of the play acting out and how it ended, but she got up sullenly and went inside. She came back to the porch with her bristles sticking out all over her and with dissatisfaction written all over her face. Joe saw it and lifted his own hackles a bit. Jim Weston had secretly borrowed a dime, and soon he was loudly beseeching Daisy to have a treat on him. Finally, she consented to take a pickled pigfoot on him. Janie was getting up a larger order when they came in, so Lum waited on them. That is, he went back to the keg, but came back without the pigfoot. "Miss Starks, the pig feet is all gone," he called out. "Oh, no, they ain't, Lum. I bought us a whole new keg of them with last order from Jacksonville. Came in yesterday." Joe came and helped Lum look, but he couldn't find the new keg either. So he went to the nail over his desk that he used for a file to search for the order. "Janie, where's that last bill of lading?" "That's right there in the nail, ain't it?" "No, it ain't either. You ain't put it where I told you to? If you get your mind out of the streets and keep it on your business, maybe you could get something straightened sometimes." "Oh, look around there, Jody. That bill ain't apt to be gone nowhere. If it ain't hanging on the nail, it's on your desk. You about to find it if you look. When you here, I didn't have to do all the looking and searching. I done told you time and time again to stick all them papers on that nail. All you got to do is mind me. How come you can't do like I tell you? You sure loves to tell me what to do, but I can tell you nothing I see. That's because you need telling," he rejoined hotly. "It would be pitiful if I didn't. Somebody got to think for women and children and chickens and cows. My God, they sure don't make none themselves. Don't think none themselves. I know a few things, and women folks think sometimes too. Oh, no, they don't. They just think they're thinking. When I see one thing, I understand 10. You see 10 things and don't understand one. Times it seems like that put Janie into thinking about the inside state of her marriage. Time came when she fought back with her tongue as best she could, but it didn't do her any good. It just made Joe do more. He wanted her submission, and he'd keep on fighting it until he felt he had it. So gradually she pressed her teeth together and learned to hush. The spirit of the marriage left the bedroom and took to living in the parlor. It was there to shake hands whenever company came to visit, but it never went back inside the bedroom again. So she put something in there to represent the spirit, like a Virgin Mary image in a church. The bed was no longer a daisy field for her and Joe to play in. It was a place where she went and laid down when she was sleepy and tired. She wasn't pedal she wasn't pedal open anymore with him. She was 24 and 7 years married when she knew. She found that out she found that out one day when he slapped her face in the kitchen. It happened over one of those dinners that chasten all women sometimes. They plan and they fix and they do. Then some kitchen dwelling fiend slaps a scorchy, soggy, tasteless mess into their into their pots and pans. Janie was a good cook, and Joe had looked forward to his dinner as a refuge from other things. So when the bread didn't rise, and the fish wasn't quite done at the bone, and the rice was scorched, he slapped Janie until she had a ringing sound in her ears, and told her about her brain before he stalked on back to the store. Janie stood where he left her for unmeasured time and thought. She stood there until something fell off the shelf inside of her. Then she went inside there to see what it was. It was her image of Jody, tumbled down and shattered. But looking at it, she saw that it never was the flesh and bone figure of her dreams, just something she had grabbed up to drape her dreams over. In a way, she turned her back upon the image where it lay and looked further. She had no more blossomy openings dusting pollen over her man, neither any glistening young fruit where the petals used to be. She found that she had a host of thoughts she had never expressed to him, and numerous emotions she had never let Jody know about. Things packed up and put her in parts and put away in parts of her heart where she could never find them. She was saving up feelings for some man she had never seen. She had an inside and an outside now, and suddenly she knew how not to mix them. She bathed and put a fresh dress and head kerchief and went on to the store before Jody had time to send for her. That was a bow to the outside of things. Jody was on the porch, and the porch was full of Eatonville as usual at this time of day. He was baiting Miss Tony Robbins as he always did when he came to the store. Jenny could see Jody watching her out of the corner of his eyes while he joked roughly with Miss Robbins. He wanted to be friendly with her again. His big laugh was as much for her as it was for the baiting. He was longing for peace, but on his own terms. I God, Miss Robbins, what make you come here and worry me when you see I'm reading my newspaper? Mary Starks lowered the paper in pretended annoyance. Miss Robbins struck her pity pose and assumed the voice. 'Cause I'm hungry, Miss Starks. 'Deed I is. Me and my children is hungry. Tony don't feed me. This is what the porch was waiting for. They burst into laughter. Miss Robbins, how can you make out you's hungry when Tony comes in here every Saturday and buys groceries like a man? 3 weeks, shame on you. Well, if you buy all that you talking about, Miss Starks, God knows what he do with it. He sure don't bring it home, and me and my poor children is so hungry. Mr. Starks, please give me a little piece of meat for me and my children. I know you don't need it, but come on inside. You ain't gonna let me read till I give it to you. Miss Tony's ecstasy was divine. Thank you, Mr. Starks. You's noble. You's the most gentleman-fied man I ever did see. You's a king. The salt pork box was in the back of the store, and during the walk, Miss Tony was so eager she sometimes stepped on Joe's heels. Sometimes she was a little before him. Something like a hungry cat when somebody approaches her pan with meat, running a little, caressing a little, and all the time making little urging on cries. Yes, indeedy, Miss Starks, you's noble. You've got sympathy for me and my poor children. Tony don't give us nothing to eat, and we so hungry. Tony don't feed me. This brought them to the meat box. Joe stood up on the box on the big meat knife and selected a piece of side meat to cut. Miss Tony was all but dancing around him. That's right, Miss Starks. Give me a little piece. About this wide. She indicated as wide as her wrist and hand. Me and my children are so hungry. Starks hardly looked at her measurements. He had seen them too often. He marked off a piece much smaller and sunk the blade in. Miss Tony all but fell to the floor in her agony. Lord have mercy, Miss Starks. You ain't gonna give me just that little teeny incy bit piece for me and all my children, is you? Lord, we so hungry. Starks cut right on and reached for the wrapping paper, for a piece of wrapping paper. Miss Tony leaped away from the proffered cut of meat as if it were a rattlesnake. I wouldn't touch it. That little eye full of bacon for me and all my children. Lord, some folks has got everything and they so gripping and so mean. Starks made out as to throw the meat back in the box and close it, and Miss Tony swooped in like lightning and seized it and started towards the door. Some folks ain't got no heart in their bosom. They willing to see a poor woman and her helpless children starve to death. God's going to put them under arrest some of these days with their stingy, gripping ways. She stepped from the porch and marched off in high drudgeon. Some laughed and some got mad. If that was my wife, said Walter Thomas, I'd kill her cemetery dead. What's special after I done bought her everything my wages can stand like Tony do? In the first place, I never would spend on no woman what Tony spent on her. Starks came back and took his seat. He had to stop and add the meat to Tony's account. Well, Tony tells me to humor her along. He moved here from up the state hoping to change her, but it ain't. He say he can't bear to leave her, and he hate to kill her, so it ain't nothing to do but put up with her. That's 'cause Tony's love her too good, said Coker. I could break her if she was mine. I'd break her or kill her, making a fool out of me in front of everybody. Tony won't ever hit her. He says beating women is just like stepping on baby chickens. He claims tain't no place on a woman to hit. Joe Lindsay said with scornful disapproval, but I'd kill a baby just born this morning for a thing like that. Tain't nothing but low down spitefulness against her husband make her do it. That's the God's truth, Jim Stone agreed. That's the very reason. Janie did what she had never done before, that is, thrust herself into the conversation. Sometimes God gets familiar with us womenfolk too and talks his inside business. He told me how surprised he was about y'all turning out so smart after him making you different, and how surprised y'all's going to be if you ever find out you don't know half as much about us as you think you do. It's so easy to make yourself out God Almighty when you ain't got nothing to strain against but women and chickens. You getting too mouthy, Janie, Starks told her. Go fetch me the checkerboard and the checkers. Sam Watson, use my fish.
I know, I'm sorry. But you did a good job. You did a good job, Peter. Yeah, yeah. Okay. The last chapter is chapter 19. So, Matt, if you could read the first half to 178, and then Snack Power, if you could read to the end. Okay, come on. If you could read to 178. I'm sorry, it went too long. Sorry.
No.
Okay, here you go.
Okay, cool.
This
No,
is
I'm
for
relieved
178.
not to.
Okay.
Getting
but
Peter
people
Marathon
really
Man over here.
Yeah, people were, yeah. That was a really super long chapter.
Yeah. Okay, so 178. Okay. And then again, him with the square toes had gone back to his house. He stood once more and again in his high flat house, without sides to it and without a roof, the soulless sword standing upright in his hand. His pale white horse had galloped over waters and thundered over land. The time was dying over. It was time to bury the dead. Janie Us been in his dirty, slouchy place for 2 days now. That's too much. Us got to get out of this house and out of this man's town. And never did lack round here. When we going, tea cake? That we don't know.
Maybe we'd go back up to state if you want to go. Oh, don't say that. But if that is what you. Nah, I ain't said nothing of the kind. I was trying not to keep you out of comfortable no longer. You wanted to stay. If I'm in your way, will you listen to this woman? Me about to bust my britches trying to stay with her, and she ought to be shot with with tacks. All right then, you name something, we'll do it. We can give it poor man's trial anyhow. Anyhow, I done got rested up, and the bed bugs is gone. Too bold round here, and didn't notice when my rest was broke. I'm gonna look around here and see what we can do. Or I give you anything, a common trial. You better stay inside this house and get some rest. Tain't nothing to find around here to know how. Raul wants to look around and see Janie. Maybe it's some kind of work for me to do, help to do. What they want to help you, what they want to help do, you ain't got nothing like it. They's gabbing all men folks. They can get their hands on and making 'em help bury the dead. They claims they's after the unemployed, but they ain't been too particular about whether you're employed or not. You stay in this house. The Red Cross is doing all that can be done. Otherwise, fed a sick and be defected. I got money on me, Janie. They can't bother me. Anyhow, I wants to go see things show enough. I wants to see if I can hear anything about the boys from Glades. Maybe they all come through all right, maybe not. Tea Cake went out and wandered around. Saw the hand of the horror on everything. Houses without roofs and roofs without houses. Steel and stone all crushed and crumbled like wood. The mother of malice had trifled with men. While Tea Cake was standing and looking, he saw two men coming towards him with rifles on their shoulders. Two white men. So he thought about what Janie had told him and flexed his knees to run. But in a moment he saw that wouldn't do him any good. They had already seen him, and they were too close to miss if they shot. Maybe they would pass on by. Maybe they saw he had money. They would realize he was not a tramp. Hello there, Jim, the tallest one called out. We're looking for you. My name ain't no Jim, Tea Cake said watchfully. What you been looking for me for? I ain't done nothing. That's what we want you for, not doing nothing. Come on, let's go bury some of these dead folks. They ain't getting buried fast enough. Tea Cake hung back defensively. What I gotta do with that? I'm a working with man with money in my pocket. Just got blowed out of these glades the storm. Short man made a quick move with his rifle. Get on the road. Don't look out somebody. Be burying you. Gonna in front of me, sir. Tea Cake found out that he was a part of a small army that had been pressed into service to clear the wreckage in public places and bury the dead. Bodies had been searched out, carried to certain gathering places, and buried. Corpses were not found in wrecked houses. They were under houses, tangled in shrubbery, floating in water, hanging in trees, drifting under wreckage. Trucks lined with drag kept rolling in the glades and other outlying parts, each with its load of 25 bodies. Some bodies fully dressed, some naked, and some in all degrees of dishevelment. Some bodies with chained faces and satisfied hands. Some dead with fighting faces and eyes flung wide open in wonder. Death had found them watching, trying to see beyond seeing. Miserable, sullen men, black and white, under guard, had to keep on searching for bodies and digging graves. A huge ditch was dug across the white cemetery, and a big ditch was opened across a black graveyard. Plenty quick lime on hand to throw over bodies as soon as they were received. They had already been buried too long. They had already been unburied too long. The men were making every effort to get them covered up as quickly as possible, but the guards stopped them. They had received orders to be carried out. Hey there, y'all. Don't bump them bodies in the hole. Look that. Examine every last one of 'em, and find out if they're white or black. Us got to handle 'em slow like that. God have mercy in the condition they's got us examine them. What difference do it make about the color? They all needs burying in a hurry. Got orders from headquarters. They're making coffins for all the white folks. Tain't nothing but cheap pine that's better and nothing. Don't dump no white folks in the hole, just so. What about the colored folks? Got boxes for them too? Nope. They can't find enough of them to go around. Just sprinkle quick lime over them and cover them up. Shucks, nobody can tell nothing about these bodies, the shapes they in. Can't tell whether they white or black. The guards had a long conference over that. After a while, they came back and told the men, "Look, they're here. When you can't tell no other way, and don't let me catch you all dumping white folks, and don't be wasting no boxes on colored. It's too hard to get hold of right now. They're mighty particular about these dead folks. The judgment." Tea Cake observed to the man working next to him. Look like they think look like they think God don't know nothing about Jim Crow law. Tea Cake had been working several hours when they thought of Janie worrying about him made him desperate. So when a truck drove up to be unloaded, he bolted and ran. He was ordered to halt on pain of being shot at, but he kept right on and got away. He found Janie sad and crying, just as he had thought. They calmed each other about his absence. Then Tea Cake brought up another matter. "Janie, us got to get out of this house and out of this man's town. I don't mean to work like that no more." "Nah, nah, Tea Cake. Let's stay in here until it's all over. If they can't see you, they can't bother you. Oh nah, supposing they come around searching, let's get out of here tonight." "Where's this going, Tea Cake?" "The quickest place is the Glades. Let's make it on back down there. This town is full of trouble and compellment." "But Tea Cake, the hurricane was down in the Glades too. It'll be dead folks to bury down there too." "Yeah, I know, Janie, if it but it could never be like 'tis here. In the first place, they've been bringing bodies out here all day, so it can't be but so many more to find. And then, again, it never was as many here as it was there. And then, too, Janie, the white folks down there knows us. It bad being strange with niggas with white folks. Everybody is everybody's against you. That shows the truth. The ones with the white man know is nice colored folks. The ones he know is is bad niggas. Janie said this and laughed, and Tea Cake laughed at her. Janie had done watched in time and time again. Each and every white man think he know all good darkies already. He don't know no more. So far, he's concerned all them he know ought to be tried and sentenced to 6 months behind United States Privy House at hard smelling. How come United States Privy House, Tea Cake? Well, you know, old Uncle Sam do have the biggest and the best of everything. So the white man, he figured that everything in Uncle Sam's consolidated water closet would be too easy. So a means to go there with the white folks know me. I feels like the motherless child around here. They got things together and stole out of the house and away. The next morning they were back in the muck. They worked hard all day fixing up a house to live so that Tea Cake could go out looking for something to do the next day. He got out soon the next morning, more out of curiosity than eagerness to work. Stayed off all day. That night he came in beaming out with light. "Who you reckon I seen, Janie? Bet you can't guess." "I'll bet you a fat man seen Sop the bottom." "Yeah, and seen him stew beef and dockery and lice and cootenanny and bootney. Guess who else? Lord knows it Sterrett? Nah, he got caught in the rush. Les helped bury him in Palm Beach. Guess who else?" You gonna tell me, Tea Cake? I don't know. Can't be motorboat. That's just who it is. Old Motor, the son of a gun, laid up in that house and slept in the lake and moved on the house way off somewhere. And Motor didn't know nothing about the storm was about over. Nah, yeah, man. We Nelly kill our fool selves running from danger, and him laid up there and sleep and float on off. Well, they say the luck is of fortune. That's right too. Look, I got a job at work, help clearing things in general, and they gonna build that dike. Show enough, that ground got to be cleared off too. Plenty work. They needs more men even. So Tea Cake made 3 hearty weeks. He brought another rifle and a pistol, and he and Jamie bucked off each other as to who was the best shot, and with Janie ranking him always with the rifle. She could knock off the head off the chicken hawk sitting up in a pine tree. Tea Cake was a little jealous, but proud of his pupil. About the middle of the 4th week, Tea Cake came home early one afternoon complaining of his head. Sick headache that made him lay down for a while. He woke up hungry, Janie and his supper ready, but by the time he walked from the bedroom to the table, he said he didn't believe he wanted a thing. Thought you told me you was hungry, Jamie wailed. I thought so too, Tea Cake said very quietly and dropped his hands. But I done baked ya a pan of beans. I knows they's good all right, but I don't choose nothing now. I thank you, Janie. He went back to bed. Way in the midnight, he woke Janie up in nightmarish struggle with an enemy that was at his throat. Janie struck a light and quieted him. What's the matter, honey? She soothed and soothed. You gotta tell me I can feel with you. Let me bear the pain long with you, baby. Where you hurt, sugar. Something got after me in my sleep, Janie. He all but cried. Try to choke me to death. Hadn't been for you, I'd be dead. Your show was straining with it, but you's all right, honey. I'm here. He went back to sleep, but then there was no getting around it. He was sick in the morning. He tried to make it, but Janie wouldn't hear of his going out at all. If I can just make it out the week, Tea Cake said. Folks was making weeks before you was born, and they're gonna be making 'em after you gone. Lay back down, Tea Cake. I'm gonna get the doctor to come see about you. Aw, ain't that bad, Janie? Look here, I can walk over to the place, but you see, it's too sick to play with. Plenty fever around here since the storm. Give me a drink before of water before you leave then. Janie dipped a glass of water and brought it to the bed. Tea Cake took it and filled his mouth and gagged horribly, disgorged this that which was in his mouth and threw the glass upon the floor. Janie was frantic with alarm. What make you act like that with your drinking water, Tea Cake? You asked me to give it to you. That water is something wrong with it. It nearly choked me to death. I told you something jumped on me here last night, and you choked me. You come making out was dreaming. Maybe it was a witch riding you, honey. I can't see. I'll find some mustard seed whilst I was out, but I sure to fetch a doctor when I come. Tea Cake didn't say anything against it, and Janie herself hurried off. The sickness to her was worse than the storm. As soon as she was well out of sight, Tea Cake got up and dumped the water bucket and washed it clean. Then he struggled to the irrigation pump and filled it again. He was not accusing Janie of malice and design. He was accusing her of carelessness. She ought to realize that water buckets need a washing like everything else. He'd tell her about it good and proper when she got back. What was she thinking about nohow? He found himself very angry about it. He eased the bucket on the table and sat down to rest before taking a drink. Finally, he dipped up a drink. It was good and cool. Come to think about it, he hadn't had a drink since yesterday. That was what he needed to give him an appetite for his beans. He found himself wanting it very much, so he threw back his head and rushed the glass to his lips. But the demon was there before him, strangling him, killing him quickly. It was a great relief to expel the water from his mouth. He sprawled on the bed again and lay there shivering until Janie and the doctor arrived. The white doctor, who had been around for so long that he was part of the muck, who told the workmen stories with brawny, sweaty words in them. He came into the house quickly, hat sitting on the left back corner of his head. Hi there, tea cake. What the hell's the matter with you? Wist I know, Dr. Simmons, but I sure is sick. Oh nah, tea cake, tain't nothing wrong that a quart of coon dick won't cure. You haven't been getting your right liquor lately. He slapped tea cake lustily across the back, and tea cake tried to smile as he was expected to, but it was hard. The doctor opened up his bag and went to work. You looked a little peaked. You do look a little peaked, tea cake. You got a temperature and your pulse is kind of off. What you been doing here lately? Nothing except working and gaming a little, doctor. But look like water done turned against me. Water? How do you mean? Can't keep it in my stomach at all. What else? Janie came around the bed full of concern. Dr. TK ain't telling you everything like he oughta. We was caught in the hurricane out here, and Tea Cake overstrained himself swimming such a long time and holding me up too, and walking all them miles in the storm, and then before he could get his rest, he had to come get me out of the water again, and fighting with that big old dog, and dog biting him in the face and everything. I spend it I was spitting him to be sick before now. Dog bit him, did you say? I twouldn't nothing much, doctor. It was all healed over in 2 or 3 days, Tea Cake said impatiently. That never been over a month now, nohow. This is something new, doctor. All figures the water is yet bad, or is bound to be. Too many dead folks been in it for to be good to drink for how long time for a long time. That's the way I figures it anyhow. All right, tea cake. I'll send you some medicine and tell you Janie how to take care of you. Anyhow, I want you in bed by yourself until you hear from me. Just you keep Janie out of your bed for a while, you hear? Come on, out of the car with me, Janie. I want to send tea cakes and pills to take right away. Outside, he fumbled in the bag and gave Jeannie a tiny bottle with a few pellets inside. Give him one of these every hour to keep him quiet, Janie, and stay out of his way when he gets in one of his gagging and choking fits of gagging and choking. How you know when he's having that, doctor? That's just what I'll come to tell you. Janie, I'm pretty sure that was a mad dog that bit your husband. It's too late to get hold of the dog's head, but the symptoms is all there. It's mighty bad that it's gone for so long. Some shots right after it happened would have fixed him right up. You mean you mean he's liable to die, doctor? Sure is. But worst thing is he's liable to suffer something awful before he goes. Doctor, I loves him, fit to kill. Tell me anything to do and I'll do it. But the only thing you can do, Jamie, is to put him in the country county hospital where they can tie him down and look after him. But he don't like no hospital law. He think I was trying. He think I was tired of doing for him. Then God knows I ain't. I can't stand the idea of tying tea cake like he was a mad dog. It almost amounts to that, Janie. He got some almost no chance to pull through, and he's liable to bite somebody else, especially you. And then you'll be in the same fix he's in. It's mighty bad. Can nothing be done for his case, doctor? Us plenty us got plenty of money in the bank in Orlando, doctor. See, can't you do something special to save him? Anything it costs, doctor. I don't care, but please, doctor, do what I can. I'll phone in to Palm Beach right away for the serum, which he should have had 3 weeks ago. I'll do all I can to save him, Janie, but it looks too late. People in that condition can't swallow water. In other ways, it's terrible.
I'll give you a copy of the
Oh, thank you.
archive. Yeah, yeah. Okay, snatch power. You're gonna wrap this up. Yeah, right here. It's only to like 190 from 193, so you're almost done.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and you get in front of the camera so we can see you.
Gotcha.
Enter your name and who you're with.
Which page is it?
179.
From the top of 179? Okay. Semi with snatch power. Their eyes were watching God. He was on the kitchen floor in great agony when she returned. She petted him, soothed him, and got him back to bed. She made up her mind to go see about that medicine from Palm Beach. Maybe she could find somebody to drive over there for it. Feel better now, tea cake, baby child? Uh huh, a little. Well, believe I'll rake up the front yard. The men's is got cane chewing and peanut butter hulls all over the place. Don't want the doctor to come back here and find it still the same. Don't take too long, Janie. Don't lack to be by yourself when I'm sick. She ran down the road just as fast as she could. Halfway to town, she met Sop the Bottom and Dockery coming towards her. Hello, Janie. How's tea cake? Pretty bad off. I'm going to see about medicine from right about now. Doctor told somebody he was sick, so us come to see. Thought something he never come to work. Y'all said y'all set with till I get back. He need the company right now, long in here. She fanned out down the road to town and found Dr. Simmons. Yes, he had an answer. They didn't have any serum, but they had wired Miami to send in. She needn't worry. It would be there early the next morning, if not before. People didn't fool around in a case like that. Nah, it wouldn't do for her to hire no car to go after it. Just got home, wait. That was all. When she reached home, the visitors rose to go. When they were alone, Tea Cake wanted to put his head in Janie's lap and tell her how he felt and let her mama him in her sweet way. But something Sop had told him made his tongue cold and heavy like a dead lizard between his jaws. Mrs. Turner's brother was back on the muck, and now he had a mysterious sickness. People just didn't take sick like this for nothing. Janie, what is the Turner woman's brother doing back on the muck?
I don't know. Tea Cake didn't even know he was back. According to my notion, what you did. No, according to my notion, you did. What you slip off from me just now for? Tea Cake, don't lack you asking me no such question. That shows how sick you is, show enough. You's a jealous thought me giving you cause. Well, what did you slip off from the house thought telling me you was going? You ain't never done that before. That was cause I was trying not to let you worry about your condition. The doctor sent me for some more medicine and I went to see if it come. Tea Cake began to cry and Janie hovered him in her arms like a child. She sat on the side of the bed and sort of rocked him back to peace. Tea Cake, tain't no use you being jealous of me. In the first place, I couldn't love nobody but you. And in the second place, I just old woman that nobody don't want but you. Nah, you ain't neither. You only sound old when you telling folks what when you was born. But with the eye, you's a young enough to suit most any man. That ain't no lie. I knows plenty more men would take you and work hard for the privilege. I done heard him talk. May so, Tea Cake. I ain't never tried to find out. Ain't just know that God snatched me out the fire through you. And I loves you and feel glad. Thank you, ma'am. But don't say you's old. You's a little girl baby all the time. God made it so you spent your old age first with somebody else and saved up your young girl days to spend with me.
I feel that way too, Tea Cake, and thank you for saying it. Tain't no trouble to say what's already so. You see a pretty woman outside of being nice. Aw, Tea Cake. Yeah, you is too. Every time I see a patch of roses or something over sporting theyselves, making out they pretty, I tell 'em, what you to see my Janie sometime. You must let the flowers see you sometimes. Hey, Janie? You keep that up, Tea Cake. I'll believe it ya after a while. Janie said archly and fixed him back in bed. It was then she felt the pistol under the pillow. It gave her a quick, ugly throb, but she didn't ask him about it since he didn't say. Never had Tea Cake slept with a pistol under his bed before. Neb mind about all that cleaning around the front yard, he told her as she straightened up from fixing the bed. You stay where I can see you. All right, Tea Cake, just as you say. And if Miss Turner's lap-legged brother come prowling by here, you can tell him I got him stopped with 4 wheel brakes. Tain't no need of standing round watching the job. I won't be telling him nothing 'cause I don't expect to see him. Tea Cake had 2 bad attacks that night. Janie saw a changing look come in his face. Tea Cake was gone. Something else was looking out of his face. She made up her mind to be off after the doctor with the first glow of the day. So she was up and dressed when Tea Cake awoke from the fitful sleep that had come to him just before day. He almost snarled when he saw her dressed to go. Where are you going, Janie? After the doctor, Tea Cake? You're too sick to be here in this house without the doctor. Maybe we ought to get you to the hospital. I ain't going to no hospital nowhere. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Guess you tired of waiting on me and doing for me. That ain't the way. I been with you. I never is been able to do enough for you. Tea Cake, you sick. You's taking everything in the way. I don't mean it. I could never be tired of waiting on you. I'm just scared you's too sick for me to handle. I want you to get well, honey, that's all. He gave her a look full of blank ferocity and gurgled in his throat. She saw him sitting up in bed and moving about so that he could watch her every move, and she was beginning to feel fear of this strange thing in Tea Cake's body. So when he went out to the outhouse, she rushed to see if the pistol was loaded. It was a 6-shooter and 3 of the chambers were full. She started to unload it, but she feared he might break it and find out she knew. That might urge his disordered mind to action. If that medicine would only come. She whirled the cylinder so that if he even did draw the gun on her, it would snap 3 times before it would fire. She would at least have warning. She could either run or try to take it away before it was too late. Anyway, Tea Cake wouldn't hurt her. He was jealous and wanted to scare her. She'd just be in the kitchen as usual and never let on. They laughed over it when he got well. She found the box of cartridges, however, and emptied it. Just as well to take the rifle from back of the head of the bed. She broke it and put the shell in her apron pocket and put it in a corner in the kitchen almost behind the stove where it was hard to see. She could outrun his knife if it came to that. Of course, she was too fussy. But it did no harm to play safe. She ought not to let poor sick Tea Cake do something that would run him crazy when he found out what he had done. She saw him coming from the outhouse with a queer loping gait, swinging his head from side to side and his jaws clenched in a funny way. This was too awful. Where was Dr. Simmons with that medicine? She was glad she was here to look after him. Folks would do such mean things to her Tea Cake if they saw him in such a fix. Treat Tea Cake like he was some mad dog when nobody in the world had more kindness about them. All he needed was for the doctor to come on with that medicine. He came back into the house without speaking. In fact, he did not seem to notice she was there and fell heavily into the bed and slept. Janie was standing by the stove washing up the dishes when he spoke to her in a queer, cold voice. Janie, how come you can't sleep in the same bed with me no more? The doctor told you to sleep by yourself, Tea Cake. Don't you remember him telling you that yesterday? How come you rather sleep on a pallet than to sleep in the bed with me? Janie saw then that he had the gun in his hand that was hanging to his side. Answer me when I speak. Tea Cake, honey, go lay down. I'll be too glad to be in there with you in a minute. The doctor say so. Go lay back down. He'll be here with some new medicine right away. Janie, I done went through everything to be good to you, and it hurt me to my heart to be ill treated like I is. The gun came up unsteadily but quickly and leveled at Janie's breast. She noted that even in his delirium, he took good aim. Maybe he would point to scare her. That was all. The pistol snapped once. Instinctively, Janie's hand flew behind her on the rifle and brought it around. Most likely, this would scare him off. If only the doctor would come. If anybody at all would come. She broke the rifle deftly and shoved in the shell as the second click told her that Tea Cake's suffering brain was urging him on to kill.
Tea cake, put down that gun and go back to bed. Janie yelled at him as the gun withered wakely in his hand. He set himself against the jamb of the door, and Janie thought Janie thought to run into him and grab his arm. But she saw the quick motion of taking aim and heard the click. She saw the ferocious look in his eyes and went mad with fear, as she had done with the water that time. She threw up her barrel of the rifle in frenzied hope and fear. Hope that he'd see it and run, desperate fear for her life. But if TK could have counted costs, but if TK could have counted costs, he would not have been there with the pistol in his hands. No knowledge of fear, nor rifles, nor anything else was there. He paid no attention to the pointing gun, than if were Janie's dog, than if were Janie's dog finger. She saw him stiffen himself all over as he leveled and took aim. Then fiend in him must kill, and Janie was the only thing living he saw. The pistol and the rifle rang out almost together. The pistol just enough after the rifle to seem its echo. To seem its echo. TK crumbled as his bullet buried itself in the joist over Jamie's head. Jamie saw the look on his face and leaped forward as he crashed forward in her arms. She was trying to hover over him as he closed his teeth with the flesh of her forearm. They came down heavily like that. Janie struggled to a sitting position and pried the dead tea cake's teeth from her arm. It was the meanest moment of eternity. A minute before, she was just a scared human being fighting for its life. Now she was her. Now she was her sacrificing self with tea cake's head in her lap. She had wanted him to live so much, and he was dead. No hour is ever eternity, but it was, but it has its right to weep. Janie held his head tightly to her breast and wept and thanked him wordlessly for giving her the chance for loving service. She had to hug him tight, for soon he would be gone. And she had to tell him for the last time. Then the grief of outer darkness descended. So that same day, Janie's great sorrow, she was in jail. And when the doctor told the sheriff and the judge how it was, they all said she must be tired that same day. She must be tried that same day. No need to punish her in jail by waiting. 3 hours in jail, and then they set the court for her case. The time was short and everything, but sufficient people were there. Plenty of white people came to look on this strangeness, and all the Negroes for miles around. Who was it didn't know? Who was it didn't know about the love between Tea Cake and Janie? The court sat, and Janie saw the judge who had put on the great robe to listen about her and Tea Cake. And 12 more white men had stopped whatever they were doing to listen and pass on what happened between Janie and Tea Cake Woods. And as to whether things were done right or not. That was funny too. 12 strange men who didn't know a thing about people like Tea Cake and and her were going to sit on the thing. 8 or 10 white women had come to look at her too. They wore good clothes and had a pinky color that comes from good food. Comes with good food. They were nobody's poor white folks. What need had they to leave their richness to come look on Janie and her overalls? But they didn't seem too mad. Janie thought it would be nice if she could make them know how it was instead of those men folks. Oh, and she hoped that she hoped that Undertaker was fixing tea cake up fine. They ought to let her go see about it. Yes. And there was Mr. Prescott that she knew right Well, and he was going to tell 12 men to kill her for shooting tea cake. And the strange man from Palm Beach who was going to ask them not to kill her, and none of them knew.
Then she saw all of the colored people standing up in the back of the courtroom, packed tight like a case of celery, only much darker than that. They were all against her, she could see. So many were there against her that a light slap from each one of them would have beat her to death. She felt them pelting her with dirty thoughts. They were there with their tongues cocked and loaded, the only real weapon left to weak folk, the only killing tool they're allowed to use in the presence of white folk. So it was already after a while, and they wanted people to talk so that they could know what was right to do about Janie Woods, the relic of tea cakes Janie. The white part of the room got calmer, the more serious it got. But a tongue storm struck the Negroes like wind among the palm trees. They talked all of a sudden, and all together like a choir at the top parts of their bodies moved on the rhythm of it. They sent word by the bailiff to Mr. Prescott. They wanted to testify in the case. Tea Cake was a good boy. He had been good to that woman. No nigger woman ain't never been treated no better. Nah, sir. He worked like a dog for her and nearly killed himself saving her in the storm. Then soon as he got a little fever from the water, she had took up with another man, sent for him to come their way from way off. Hanging was too good. All they wanted was a chance to testify. The bailiff went up, and the sheriff, and the judge, and the police chief, and the lawyers all came together to listen for a few minutes. Then they parted again, and the sheriff took the stand and told how Janie had come to his house with the doctor and how he found things when he drove out to hers. Then they called Dr. Simmons, and he told about tea cake sickness and how dangerous it was to Janie and the whole town, and how he was scared for her and thought to have tea cake locked up in the jail. But seeing Janie's care, he neglected to do it. And how he found Janie all bit in the arm, sitting on the floor and petting tea cake's head when he got there, and the pistol right by his hand on the floor. Then he stepped down. Any further evidence to present, Mr. Prescott? The judge asked. No, Your Honor. The state rests. The palm tree dance the palm tree dance began again among the Negroes in the back. They had come to talk. The state couldn't rest until it heard. Mr. Prescott, I got something to say. Sop the Bottom spoke out anonymously from the anonymous herd. The courtroom swung round on itself to look. If you know what's good for you, you better shut your mouth up until somebody calls you, Mr. Prescott told him coldly. Yes, sir, Mr. Prescott. We are handling this case. Another word out of any of you niggas back there, and I'll bind you over to the big court. Yes, sir. The white woman made a little applause, and Mr. Prescott glared at the back of the house and stepped down. Then the strange white man that was going to talk for her got up there. He whispered a little with the clerk and then called on Janie to take the stand and talk. After a few little questions, he told her to tell just how it happened and to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help her God. They all leaned over to listen while she talked. First thing she had to remember was she was not at home. She was in a courthouse fighting something, and it wasn't death. It was worse than that. It was lying thoughts. She had to go way back to let them know how she and Tea Cake had been with one another so they could see she could never shoot Tea Cake out of malice. She tried to make them see how terrible it was that things were fixed so that Tea Cake couldn't come back to himself until he had got rid of that mad dog that was in him, and he couldn't get rid of that dog and live. He had to die to get rid of the dog, but she hadn't wanted to kill him. A man is up against a hard game when he must die to beat it. She made them see how she couldn't ever want to be rid of him. She didn't plead to anybody. She just sat there and told. And when she was through, she hushed. she had been through for some time before the judge and the lawyer and the rest seemed to know it. But she sat on in that trial chair until the lawyer told her she could come down.
The defense rests, her lawyer said. Then he and Prescott whispered together, and both of them talked to the judge in secret high up there where he sat. Then they both sat down. Gentlemen of the jury, it is for you to decide whether the defendant has committed a cold-blooded murder or whether she is a poor, broken creature, a devoted wife trapped by unfortunate circumstances who really, in firing a rifle bullet into the heart of her late husband, did a great act of mercy. If you find her a wanton killer, you must bring in a verdict of first-degree murder. If the evidence does not justify that, then you must set her free. There is no middle course. The jury filed out, and the courtroom began to drone with talk. A few people got up and moved about, and Janie sat like a lump and waited. It was not death she feared. It was misunderstanding. If they made a verdict that she didn't want tea cake and wanted him dead, then that was a real sin and a shame. It was worse than murder. Then the jury was back again, out 5 minutes by the courthouse clock. We find the death of Virgil Woods to be entirely accidental and justifiable, and that no blame should rest upon the defendant, Janie Woods. So she was free, and the judge and everybody up there smiled with her and shook her hand. And the white women cried and stood around her like a protecting wall, and the Negroes with heads hung down shuffled out and away. The sun was almost down, and Janie had seen the sun rise on her troubled love, and then she had hot tea cake and had no. The sun was almost down, and Janie had seen the sunrise on her troubled love, and then she had shot tea cake, and had been in jail, and had been tried for her life, and now she was free. Nothing to do with the little that was left of the day, but to visit. Nothing to do with the little that was left of the day, but to visit the kind of white friends who had realized her feelings and thanked them. So the sun went down. She took a room at the boarding house for the night and heard the men talking around the front. Oh, you know them white men wasn't gonna do nothing to no woman that looked like her. She didn't kill no white man, did she? Well, long as she don't shoot no white man, she can kill just as many niggas as she please. Yeah, the nigga woman can kill up all the men's and they wants to, but you know that they wants to, but you bet not kill one of them. The white folks will sure hang you if you do. Well, you know what they say. A white man and a nigga woman is the freest thing on earth. They do as they please. Janie buried tea cake in Palm Beach. She knew he loved the glades, but it was too low for him to lie with water, maybe washing over him with every heavy rain. Anyway, the glades and its waters had killed him. She wanted him out of the way of storms, so she had a strong vault built in the cemetery at West Palm Beach. Janie had wired Orlando for money to put him away. Tea Cake was the son of Evening Sun, and nothing was too good. The undertaker did a handsome job, and Tea Cake slept royally on his white silken couch among the roses she had bought. He looked almost ready to grin. Janie bought him a brand new guitar and put it in his hands. He would be thinking up new songs to play to her when she got there. Sop and his friends had tried to hurt her, but she knew it was because they loved Tea Cake and didn't understand. So she sent Sop word, and to all the others through him. So the day of the funeral, they came with shame and apology in their faces. They wanted her quick forgetfulness. So they filled up and overflowed the 10 sedans that Janie had hired and added others to the line. Then the band played, and Tea Cake rode like a pharaoh to his tomb. No expensive veils and robes for Janie this time. She went on in her overalls. She was too busy feeling grief to dress like grief.
But thank you guys. Thank everybody. There are 3 more pages. There are 3 more pages to go. I'd like to thank Snatch Power and Peter Woods and Peter Harris and Uhuru Moore, right? Okay, yes, for coming and being part of this great experience. And Alicia and Leaf and everybody else, Lena and Annie. thank you so much for coming and staying, and we hope to do some more exciting events for you. So if you're watching, bye. Have a good evening. Thank you too.